You see how big it is?
Yes, it's huge. Like I took this picture while I was on one end of the flight deck to the other, trying to just get the perspective of how big it is. I mean, it looks like you're standing in the middle of the street somewhere. It's huge.
And all the people who work there, and the funny part about it, it is around the clock work. There is no, oh, this is the weekend. This is, everybody works every day, you know, that's all you do is work.
Yeah, it was amazing. But, and the seals, because we were on Coronado, so the seals didn't want to do that. There's constantly for 2 days. They were dropping in the water.
Hi, my name is Shelton Shabatsis.
My name is Christian Alshon.
I'm Nikki Andrew. I'm Chandra Moore.
Gabrielle Austin.
I'm Kyle Yates.
My name is Lynn Lowry, and I'm the president of the Spalding County Pickleball Association.
Pickleball is a sport that anybody can get into. It transcends ages, athletic ability, skill level. It's easy, pick up a paddle, get on the court.
It's very social, you make tons of friends.
Has to be the hospitality and the red carpet that's right behind me. It really makes us feel special. Yeah, like a pro.
Hospitality has been fantastic. We had a lot of weather. Typically isn't fun for us, but they did have a lot of indoor venues, so we at least got to keep playing, which is always awesome.
Permanent pickleball courts with permanent nets. All the lines are done. It's not taped, which is fantastic.
APP runs a really great tournament, and we started with the national anthem. I love that, but I just love being here.
I'm Kyle Yates, professional pickleball player, and I absolutely love playing pickleball. It's one of those sports where you get a nice little workout, but anybody can play. It's not quite as hard to learn as tennis, but I think it's a lot more fun. You can play with your whole family. In fact, my whole family plays.
Commissioner James Dutton here with my son Ty and my daughter Elizabeth. We're just out here, even in the light drizzle, to support pickleball with these two future pickleball stars right here. Spalding County loves pickleball. We support it. That's why we've got this awesome facility that keeps us out of the rain. We can't wait to see you next year, and thanks for coming this year.
Hey there, Griffin Spalding. This is Rita Johnson, your Spalding County Commissioner, District 3, out here at Griffin High School, enjoying the second annual APP Atlanta Metro Tournament. As you can see, due to weather elements, we are actually out here at the gymnasium. Thank you to the school system for allowing us to come out here. As we wrap up this tournament, we want to thank these professionals to come out here and allowing us just to basically support you and come out here and show you all the wonderful aspects of Griffin Spalding and also our huge pickleball facility. So we're looking forward to an annual third year, and thank you so much for coming out.
If you haven't tried pickleball yet, grab a paddle, grab a ball, come out to Wyoming Tias Park and come play.
Everyone has heroes. Sometimes it's folks like Superman or Batman. Other times it's your parents or someone in the community. But all heroes, whether they're fictional or real, have some things in common. Bravery, courage, integrity, honor, putting others above themselves.
Dispatch for Spalding County Engine 1, Engine 7, Rescue 7. Response to structure 5 at 2000 West Road. Dispatch for Spalding County Engine 1, Engine 6.
York and Spalding.
I play in Spalding.
I think this is fabulous. I was in San Diego.
I think this is excellent. I've had a lot of things that I'm trying to get rid of. So I just got up early, loaded up my truck. This is my second trip and getting it done.
I just got back last night.
I think it's good, I mean, because like, ever since they done away with the boat man down there, there ain't a whole lot you can do with it.
This week, Spalding County completed the chip seal resurfacing process on Amelia Road. This process affords us to try a proven method that improves our dirt roads, and it's a method that's designed to create a smoother surface, less dust, and a better driving experience. Chip seal is a 4-layer emulsion rock combination applied together, and it's designed to reduce and combat potholes. Amelia Road and Yarborough Road are the first 2 locations where we will test the chip and seal process in Spalding County. Our test process will measure the long-term durability of these roadways, and if the results are positive, we will consider additional dirt roads to upgrade.
Spalding County. This is your District 4 County Commissioner Ryan Bolden out here at West Ellis and Parker Road. This right here is the start of our paving, our resurfacing project funded by the T-Splosh you voted on. As you can see behind me here, we've got the milling machine working right now. It's loading it's filling it up, grinding up the asphalt off the roadway, loading it into this truck here. When this truck gets full, it goes back, dumps the billings, and brings the asphalt right back down the road to the asphalt machine as they're fixing these roads. This right here is, like I said, the start of the T-Splosh resurfacing program, and it looks like they're doing a pretty good job. Right now they're doing all the patchwork, getting it ready to put the resurface on. Look, just kind of keep an eye out for the next couple of weeks. You'll see it here in this district alone. This year we are able to pave right at 11 miles of roadway. That's never been done here in Spalding County. We've never had a budget line item until this year for the roads. So your current Board of Commissioners have set aside a budget item to try to keep our roads in shape and to keep them maintained throughout the year. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out to us anytime, email, phone, we'll answer you back. Take care now.
She'll get one.
Not yet. I don't feel like. Our colleague played Spalding. Spalding and Griffin to like hold the thing and go first.
Have you figured out, I've seen you do it, how you did
The Spalding County thing and
Thank you.
But the old way, it was nothing newer than the 13th of September.
right, that was the, yeah.
Okay, so why are we signing it?
Except for a vote tonight.
Oh, okay. So which one do I go to?
When Josh does his, we get this right here.
Okay, and CCG, the guy from CCG works for multiple copies.
Okay. It's already flowing in, so we'll get some of the seats. Do we need 2 copies of each of these signed things?
Kelly always knows what day it is. It's Boss's Day.
So we do that every 5 years.
Right? Yes. I didn't know that.
You got the list already? The list? No, I do not. 30 seconds. That checks out.
I'm gonna let you sign. I'm not gonna sign until I got vote on it. I don't know if we're gonna pass that. I got questions. What is this here?
Oh, that's not signed.
Good evening and welcome to the Spalding County Board of Commissioners Extraordinary Session. It is Monday, October 17th at 6 p.m. I would request that you please silence your cell phones and all other electronic devices. At this time, I'd like to call for a motion to amend the agenda to remove item number 6 under new business, as this item is being addressed as part of number 1 currently on the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to remove item number 6, as it is a duplicate item on the agenda from item number
1.
Item number 1, excuse me.
All right, I'd also like to call for a motion to amend the agenda to
Wait,
include.
let's do that one.
I have a second.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion, a second, any more discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. 5-0, motion carries. I'd like to call for a motion to amend the agenda to include an item number 7 under new business to consider a request from the Sheriff's Office to direct payments from the school traffic camera tickets be paid directly to the Spalding County Sheriff's Office. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion to second. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. 5-0. Motion has been, both motions have been approved. At this time, I'd like to ask Judge Josh Thacker to lead us in the invocation. Okay, I'm sorry. Excuse me on that. I'd like to ask Mr. Otis Blake to lead us in the, and Commissioner Rita Johnson to lead us in the pledge of the flag. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry.
You got your second pick tonight, sorry. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we're grateful for this beautiful fall day. We're grateful for the freedom that we enjoy. We're grateful for the privilege to live in this fine community. I thank you for these leaders who selflessly give of their time, and I pray for wisdom. I pray for edification of you as we represent our organizations and represent this community well tonight. I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Please face the flag with me. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. There are no public hearing tonight. Item number 5, presentation of financial statement. Consider approval of the financial statement for the 3 months ending September 30, 2022, and the 2 months that ended in August 31st, 2021. Ms. Garrison.
To begin with, I apologize for giving you both of these statements tonight. The auditors were here last month, and that's why I didn't present August last month. So I'll be happy to answer questions on either of these statements.
All right, have a motion to approve?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the financial statement as presented.
Okay.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. 5-0. Commissioner Johnson, do you have a comment?
No.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Garrison. Appreciate it. Presentations, proclamations. Consider requests from the Spalding County Rotary Club for a proclamation in recognition of Rotary International fight for a polio-free world. Dr. Ledbetter.
It's my privilege to welcome back Mr. Otis Blake from the Griffin Rotary Club. At this time, I'd like to read the proclamation and then ask Mr. Otis if he has any additional comments. The Spalding County Proclamation in recognition of Rotary International fight for a polio-free world, October 24th, 2022. Whereas Rotary International, founded on February 23, 1905 in Chicago, Illinois, USA, is the world's first and one of the largest nonprofit service organizations. And there are over 1.4 million Rotary members comprised of professional and business leaders in over 33,000 clubs in 200 countries and geographic areas. And the Rotary motto, service above self, inspires members to provide humanitarian service, encourage high ethical standards, and promote goodwill and peace in the world. And Rotary in 1985 launched Polio Plus, spearheaded the Global Polio Eradication Initiative with the World Health Organization, U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and UNICEF to immunize the children of the world against polio. And polio cases have dropped by 99.9% since 1988. And the world stands on the threshold of eradicating the disease. And to date, Rotary has contributed more than $2 billion in countless volunteer hours to the protection of more than 2.5 billion children in 122 countries. And Rotary continues to work with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to raise funds for polio eradication worldwide. And these efforts are providing much needed operational support, medical personnel, laboratory equipment, and educational materials for health workers and parents. And in addition, Rotary has played a major role in decisions by donor governments to contribute billions of dollars to the effort. And there are over 150 Rotary Club members, with 2 clubs in the city of Griffin and Spalding County sponsoring service projects to address such critical issues as poverty, health, hunger, illiteracy, and the environment in their local communities and abroad. Now therefore be it resolved, the Spalding County Board of Commissioners do hereby proclaim October 24, 2022 as World Polio Day in Spalding County, Georgia, and encourage all citizens to join Rotary International in the fight for a polio-free world. Mr. Blake.
Thank you for that, Dr. Ledbetter. I also introduced Connor West. He's president of the Daybreak Rotary Club, and collectively we're part of the 130 member strong organization in this community that helps make Griffin and Spalding County a better place, much like you do. And you heard some of the statistics about our worldwide initiative. We're part of 1.4 million members. There are 46,000 clubs worldwide, and we're just composed of citizens, of leaders, of friends who come together to fight some really big causes. And as you heard, in addition to literacy and clean drinking water and economic development, curing disease is one of those. So since the mid-'80s, this has been an initiative to eradicate polio. And you may think, well, that's kind of an old-fashioned disease and it doesn't really affect our borders. Yes, we've been successful in reducing it by over 99%. Yes, while polio exists in only 2 countries, Pakistan and Afghanistan, But it's not just unique to faraway lands. I learned recently that Dr. Stephen Ledbetter's grandmother suffered from polio. And you might have seen the news recently where a wild polio case was identified in New York City. So it's not completely eradicated, and we're not going to stop until it is. So thank you for this opportunity to bring that awareness, and together we can continue to work to make our world a better and safer place.
Thank you.
DeAndre will tell us where we want to go. Are we in the right place? All right, yeah. All right, who's taking first?
We're both taking, so each is taller than you.
Good. All right. Thanks so much.
Congratulations, guys.
Thank you. Okay. Item number 2, briefing from the members of the Justice Facilities Committee, courthouse elected officials, and the Spalding County judges to report their findings and request funding for a needs assessment study in support of a new Spalding County justice facility, courthouse and jail. Dr. Ledbetter?
This time I would recognize Judge Josh Thacker.
Judge Thacker.
Thank you.
Dr.
I appreciate y'all letting me come here tonight. I want to start by introducing some really important folks that are in this room so that everybody's aware of how important this is. And I can, it's one of the moments I get excited about because I can say that your justice leadership stands united in what I am presenting to you all tonight. I want to start out by saying that I'm here as the co-chair with Alexander Hope, who's the president of the Spalding County Bar Association, of the Justice Facilities Committee. This is an ad hoc committee that you all very kindly allowed us to form to explore the question of where are we at as far as our facilities go, our detention center and our courthouse. What can we fix? What can we renovate? And what do we need? What can we not do? And so that's what we're here to do, is give you all our first round of feedback. This is the first time we've come back, and I want to introduce the committee because you all gave us a lot of free rein in how to form this committee. And again, the mission statement that you all gave us is that we are to evaluate the condition of the county's judicial and public safety facilities. Let's see if I can do this right. There we go. For the purpose of returning to the board, commissioners, recommendations for repairs, upgrades, and replacements. And very quickly, the GFC members are myself as co-chair, Alexander Hope on the back row back there as the president of the Bar Association as our co-chair, Sheriff Dix, who is right over here, Chief Superior Court Judge Fletcher Sams, who is over there in the corner, Lance Griffin, who is back here as our facilities director, Will Simmons, who is just pulling in, I understand, in the back, DeAndre Smith, I don't know where DeAndre is. There, sorry, directly behind me. I was looking over here. As for the Spalding County Administration, Carmen Caldwell as president of the Chamber of Commerce. Brittany Standifer could not make it tonight from Archway. She had a prior commitment, but she said that Stephanie Wyndham will say whatever she might need to say. And then award-winning architect Doug Shaw is here with Jericho Design, and then Kelsey Carden representing the city of Griffin on the group. So that's the group we made up, and we are very proud of that group. They have spent many, many hours, frankly, for no pay whatsoever, going through our jail and going through everything else. So I also want to take a moment, so that's the Justice Facilities Committee, but I also want you all to realize how important this is, and there are several other folks in this room tonight who are not on there, but who do need to be recognized. So obviously, Chief Judge, Superior Court Judge Sams is here, but we also have Chief Juvenile Court Judge Ott is here to show support of this, as well as Associate Juvenile Court Judge Natalie Ashman. So we're thrilled to have 100% of our juvenile court judges here supporting this. We also are, Chief Magistrate Judge Kavanaugh is here. There she is over there. And she has 4 judges in her office, and I'm very comfortable saying that they are in support of this as well. And then, of course, Judge Parks is here as well from the Magistrate Court. We also have Patrick Shepard, our Solicitor General, and then Marie Broder, our District Attorney, could not be here tonight, so she sent her Chief Assistant DA, David Studdard, in her stead to show how important this is. And then we have Debbie Brooks here, our duly elected Superior Court Clerk. So I say that, did I miss anybody? Anytime you introduce folks, you miss somebody. Okay, so I point out these folks so that you all can see how important this is to us. I mean, I don't know the last time you had this many judges in one room. It's a little scary. But I just wanted you to see how important this is to us. These are the stakeholders who have to interact with our courthouse and our jail on a daily basis. So obviously Superior Court with Ms. Brooks, State Court with Ms. Brooks and her team, the Juvenile Court, not only is the judges, but the clerks and the probation officers. The Probate Court Judge, Judge Hunt, could not be here tonight, but she sends her regards. The Magistrate Court, which is a huge team of 4 judges and a whole bunch of folks that move a lot of cases. The District Attorney's Office, up on the 4th floor, the Solicitor General's office on the 2nd floor with us. Each of their offices have a Victims Advocate office. There's a Public Defender's office who works in the courthouse but has offices elsewhere. The Sheriff's has too many divisions that interact with us to count. And then, of course, the Felony DUI Court, the State Court, which is Judge Essery, he could not be here tonight, but as far as our Accountability Court, he's in support. You have the ADR office, of course, probation, both felony and misdemeanor, who have offices outside but interact in the courthouse and the jail, child support, and of course our law librarian, Alexander Hope, is our librarian. So it's a significant number of people who are responsible for this. What I wanted to do next is to say, if, and so what I want to do next is show you all what we've done. So what we did as a JFC, we thought that was cool if we just called ourselves the JFC, is that we went and toured the jail. And the sheriff very kindly opened up and made his team fully accessible. And I want to take a very quick moment and say something really important. The sheriff and his team have done the absolute best job they could potentially do in an unwinnable situation. And I just want to make certain I'm really careful with that and say that we are so profoundly pleased with the efforts that the sheriff has done, but it's still, well, anyway, there's some off-color analogies there, but it's just not going to be fixed. So here are the pictures that we took during our tour. So this is the hallway right outside where the food is made. You can see the water damage where it has come through the ceiling, and then obviously the paint has gotten scraped up off the floor. And to the left there, of course, the food trays. And Sheriff, if you have any of these you want to jump in on, let me know. This pipe is in the kitchen, and what it is where the pipes have gotten so corroded over the years that basically they can't stop it. And if you'll look close, you can see the clamps where they have tried very hard to stop any leaks. The problem is, if they were to cut that, it's so corroded and degraded that it cannot be replaced except in its entirety through the whole thing. Pieces cannot be replaced.
And those types of repairs are all over that building. It's just not in the kitchen area, just in the jail. It's the whole area. There is one section of that pipe in the kitchen that may be 10 feet long that probably has more than 24 of those exact same repairs in it. And those were done prior to 2017.
All right, so the next one, this is just simply to show the age of it. So as you can see, there's no high tech. It's all analog there. It's buttons and lights and switches and a big thing at the bottom that says "Do not touch." I don't know what that is, but I didn't touch it. But you can see that our technology is severely out of date, and obviously to upgrade that is just out of the question. This one was my favorite picture, and if you look at it as if you're standing with your face to the wall and you're looking up, that's what you're looking at. That's the beam that holds the ceiling up. As you can see, it's halfway rusted through and threatening to collapse at any moment. And so I just want you to imagine that's the I-beam holding up. And of course, I'm showing you these moments, but I just want you to understand what the sheriff's saying, which is that this is the whole jail. There's no section of the jail that is in fully functional condition. These are just the best pictures. This is the shower. So when you walk in as an inmate, This is the shower that you're getting clean in. And we have several pictures of this. The floor is just as bad. Everything's rusted. The tiles are coming up, which of course are also a safety hazard because obviously tiles can become a weapon without much effort at all. And then this is something we saw everywhere. So the sheriff was telling me that the dehumidifiers are broken and were specialty to the building and can't be replaced. Therefore, it is incredibly humid in the building. Every metal item everywhere looks like that. And those, of course, are special doors that would also have to be specially ordered to be replaced at bazillions of dollars. And so everything you look at, and here's another door we saw where you can see that it's just falling apart. And then lastly, we thought that was a good example of the water damage where the ceiling has just let water in and gone through. Lastly, this is where the sheriff is doing everything he can to keep the water out, keep the ceiling up, and you can see that there's plyboard where they have done everything they can to keep it in its place while we go, and that's the booking area. So every time somebody comes into the jail, that's their first location there. That's us. At the end of the tour, the sheriff very kindly nominated one of his deputies to load us up in the van and bring us from the jail to the courthouse in the way they bring their inmates over. And so there's us in there. There's Lance Griffin and Alexander Hope smiling. We think we're probably the first people to ever smile and get into that van. But Deputy Piper drove us across town and was explaining to us how dangerous and difficult it is to get inmates from the jail to the courthouse. They have to pull them, pat them down, search the van, put them in the van, get them out of the van at the courthouse, or drive safely. And then once they get them there, they have to pat them down again, search the van again, take them over. And every single step is that, and it's very labor intensive. So that's the jail. Pivoting over to the courthouse, as you all are well aware, there is a non-functioning elevator in the courthouse. It is an extremely expensive fix. Thank you all for taking care of that. But as you all are well aware, despite your best efforts and prompt action, it's still not fixed because the parts were on some boat off the coast somewhere forever. So we have jurors coming in every day. In fact, Judge Sams and I were both conducting jury trials today, and Judge Sams actually had 2 courtrooms with Judge Collier. We had jurors everywhere, we had court everywhere, and we had 2 of our 3 functional elevators. This was especially difficult during COVID. And one of the elevators doesn't even go to the 4th floor, but that was a design flaw. So lastly, this is what we've done. Everything in the courthouse is make do. I call it our camper van courthouse, and I'll tell you why in a second. We have turned the jury room, which was the room in the basement there, into another courtroom. But the problem is, for us to do that, this is what everyone sees when they go to the courtroom. Because where else? It's the garage. You got to go through our garage to get to that courtroom. And it works, but again, it is not Spalding quality. It gets the job done, but it's not anything that any of us should look in the mirror and say, that's the solution to this issue. I put this one up there for Judge Kavanaugh. So Judge Kavanaugh, if I am not mistaken, is the longest serving judge in any court in the state of Georgia. One of my mentors and one of my heroes. If you will look at the blueprint I've put up on the wall, you will see that room that says storage. That is her office. So Judge Kavanaugh, the longest serving judge in the state of Georgia, whose office is in a storage closet because that's who she is. And she makes certain that her folks are taken care of. So lastly, this is, I think, the best picture to tell you what's going on with the courthouse. So obviously, as you can see, the courthouse is not falling apart like the jail. It is struggling, but it is also severely undersized for what we need. What you are seeing in there is 3 desks that have been set up in the hallway outside the courtroom because there's nowhere else for those 3 individuals who need to conduct business related to court to be. And you'll see it's like a real, they've got plants over there, they've got a coffee pot in the other corner, like it's an office, it's their office in the hallway. So I just thought that was the best picture to explain why we are absolutely positively out of space. And then I'm going to let Dr. Simmons hit this one, but what I want to do is hit a couple of points as he moves up. The detention center capacity is for 500 inmates. I checked the census today, it's 590. I check it every day, as do so many other people, to see who's in there under my signature. Do they need to be there? Can I let them out? In fact, I let one person out that I wouldn't normally let out today because, well, there's 590 in the jail. I think that it's a reasonable estimate to say that probably by the end of next year, we could potentially be looking at 650 as an average number. I just don't think I'm all that out of line by saying that is a potential possibility, despite everybody's best efforts. We go out to the jail once a week. We do everything we can to move the cases along. The last of it is, oh yeah.
Along with that population, I think I've said this to y'all before, when COVID first started, we went in and we released as many nonviolent people from jail as we could, and we dropped the population down to about 300. So right now, we're not holding or housing anybody for misdemeanors. They have to be booked in. Bonds have to be set. Traffic offenses that are fingerprintable and other offenses that are small like that, we're bringing them in, we're booking them in, and calling somebody to come pick them up. So as you see that population grow to 590 and eventually to 650, those are the worst of the worst. Those are people who do not and cannot be let out of jail. Those are drug traffickers. I think at one time we had 27 people in there that had been charged with murder, armed robberies, things like that. So as the population went down, the population of people that we had to keep in went up. So we are at a busting point with the seams right there. We've done everything like the judge said. All the judges have worked with us, the district attorney's office, solicitor's office, to help solve that part of the problem. And I don't think there's anything else we can do to rectify that, because we carried it just about as far as we can.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
Before you go on with your presentation. How much of this number at 590 of serious offenders do we attribute to the fact that you had 2 years almost no court? I just have to wonder if that number is not reflective of that, or what? How did you put that into the
I think some of that is a factor, because our courts were shut down, for quite a while. And in some estimates, we're looking at maybe a 2-year backlog of the system. But you also have to take into consideration that the state system is not taking people in at the rate that they were before, because we're not the only ones that are backlogged and backed up. It's happening all over the state, and there's only a finite amount of bed space in the state system for sheriffs, all 159 of us, to put people into. So that population is probably pretty much going to stay static, if not grow.
And I'll add one more layer to that, which is that there are more murder cases pending now in Spalding than there are usually in the circuit at any given time. So the crime rate of significant cases is up. Everybody's nodding at me that I'm not off base with that. So, so the crime rate is up. The folks that have to be held is up. The state is picking up fewer folks. And now we are starting to move cases. As I said, Judge Sams brought in a second judge, and they were moving 2 cases through. All of that contributes to this, and then I'm going to turn the floor over to Dr. Simmons. So in 1985, when this courthouse and jail were built, they were built on the original SPLOST, by the way. I found this out from Judge Essery, that Spalding County created the SPLOST. I didn't realize that, and they built the high school, Griffin High School, the courthouse, and the jail all at the same time, and it was a 3 for a penny kind of thing. So in that time, in 1985, there were 2 Superior Court judges. There was 1 part-time state court judge. There was 1 magistrate, 1 probate, and 1 juvenile. So 5.5 judges. Now we have, and that asterisk, I'll tell you that in a second. So there are 5 Superior Court judges. There's 1 full-time state court judge, that's me. There are 4 full-time magistrate judges, 1 probate judge, and 2 juvenile court judges. Although they are technically down the street, they shouldn't be. They really should be in the courthouse with us. So that's 5.5 judges it was designed for. We have 13 judges now. That asterisk is telling each and every one of you all that that number is not a static number. So we are knocking on the door of 2 judges in the state court. They're knocking on the door of another judge upstairs. And I know Judge Kavanaugh is knocking on the door of potentially, someone else there. So my point is that 13 is simply a mark on the road as we go by, not a permanent goal where we're at. So that's what I wanted to tell you all, is just kind of what we've been doing. We also did a whole tour of Fayette County, but we decided not to do that one tonight. We decided to focus on Spalding tonight. We've had several meetings and we've been very productive. And again, if you see any of these members, thank them, because they've been doing a lot of work for absolutely no pay and gone into some pretty tough situations to do that. So with that said, I'll yield the floor to Dr. Simmons, our Sixth Circuit Administrator, for his portion of the presentation.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Welcome
Thank you
back.
all. So I'm Will Simmons. I'm the District Court Administrator for the 6th District, which comprises 14 counties. So Spalding is part of that, one of the counties in my district. And so I've been a part of the committee, working with Judge Thacker and the sheriff and everybody. I've toured the buildings. I've seen everything. And how you doing, Steve? Spoke with Steve last week. But anyway, they've already done the talking. You've already seen what we need to do. I guess I am here, can you go to needs assessment?
Yes.
To ask for a needs assessment study. So with the data that you've received and what you've seen, there are experts out there, and I've been a part of several with other counties, to include Henry, which is going through this similar situation, whereby we have someone come in and just do a needs study. What they do is they look at every class of court. They look at our population, they look at our case count, they look at our future growth for the county, they look at our jail situation, and they give us a report back. And it's really a good meat and bones. So based on what he said and what we've seen, it's a more professional view of what we really need here in Spalding County. I did want to mention that we could have had some senior judges last week to catch us up on some of these cases that we're trying to catch up on as a result of COVID. We could not do that because we don't have the room here in Spalding to do that, to house other judges. You've already seen the pictures of where our employees are situated. One of the things that we could consider, though, that you could consider, is that our current facility with the proper upgrades could be used as a revenue source for the federal government to house federal folks. So as we look at a means to fund what we're trying to do, and I personally would recommend, sorry, Judge, a courthouse and a jail that's connected for efficiency purposes. But as we do that, you can use what we currently have as a funding source by leasing what we have with upgrades to the federal government as a funding source to feed us, to feed the county as we fund what our future growth is. And I can get with Steve on that in regards to how that's done. So I guess I'm here to just basically, you've seen all the evidence. We would like to have a needs assessment study. There's the National Center for State Courts, which is what most counties probably use. They're very neutral. They're not in cahoots with anybody or any builders or developers. They just come in, they look at what we have, and they give a professional opinion as to what we need to do. And there are others that we can look at, and I'll be happy to work with purchasing, Steve, and anyone else to kind of get that study out there. But that's something we kind of need to do. But I'm here to offer my services and my experience, having done this several times in other counties, to get a facility that I think the citizens need. And we can also repurpose our current courthouse, which is historical, for other facilities and other needs. So I'm here to answer any questions you may have in that regard.
Thank you.
All right.
I'd be interested in learning more about the leasing of it. The
Yes.
building looks like a total loss to me, so I'm not sure exactly, what you're talking about putting into
Yeah, so I was just talking
funding
to the
into that
sheriff.
building.
We were just having a little conversation, and there's a federal standard, right? And with the upgrades you can make to what we have currently existing, if we bring it up to code for federal facility purposes, we can then be eligible to lease that space, which is revenue to the county. And I'll be happy to meet with you, Commissioner, to go in more detail on how that works.
I got a question for the sheriff.
And they have done that in our neighboring county in Clayton, where they built the courthouse and the jail connected
I like that
and
concept.
leased the space of the former jail to federal prisons, and it's still a current revenue stream for the county.
So at what point, I know we said this was actually built in 1985, At what point did, and I'm just wondering, when we really noticed that it was dilapidating? I mean, like because I'm thinking, and my question is, I'm looking at the potential mold, I'm looking at the water losses, which is an insurance agent's worst nightmare, but I'm wondering, when was this recognized, and is it all due to maintenance?
Yes, ma'am. I think the majority of it is due to maintenance. Lance could probably tell you more about that. But there was a time when the sheriff, previous sheriff made the decision not to have the county maintain the building like they do other buildings, and to hire their own maintenance people. And I think that over a period of time, it just gradually got away. When I came into office in 2017, if I said something about, okay, hey, that needs to be fixed, the answer was, oh, we'll get to it. Okay, well, that sink is not working right there. We'll get to it. If you wanted to have a barbecue and you wanted to fry fish, oh, they were dead on that. But it finally got to the point where I had to meet with them and say, you can either do this, or you'll find another place to work, or you can retire. And we had a couple of them that decided to leave. And going back in and looking at it, that is years worth of damage that was just left untouched. Who goes in and puts strips of rubber hosing around leaking water pipes? And it goes back to that thing, if you find that you have a roof leak, if you ignore it, eventually you're gonna have problems with the walls, a problem with the floor, and everything else, and it's gonna cost more than it would have if you could just fix that original roof leak. Now with the roof, we went through the thing with the Noresco, where we did the energy survey. We spent about $1.1 million replacing the roof. The damage that you're seeing in there is damage prior to that, and also because of the outdated and antiquated heat and AC system in there that's now having problems draining. We have 2 chillers that run that building. One of them is dead. The other one is on its last leg, and that's about a $250,000 investment right there. We are looking at using the money that y'all are allowing us to use for repairs to the jail. I think it's either 3.5 or 3 million to redo some of the stuff in there, but still you're just patching. And we have a long-term problem, but we also have a right now problem that can't be ignored. There's a standard that has to be maintained out there. And it's like I said before, we would rather do this now and put forth a strong combined effort to do something about this than have the federal government come in here and say, you are going to do this. It's a lot more palatable to the community. It's a lot more palatable to everybody. And I think that's at the point that we're at right now, is it's years worth of damage that we're playing catch up to try to fix and maintain, and we're creating a quilt out there is all we're doing. We don't have a blanket, we got a quilt, we're just patching pieces together. So I hope that answered you.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Judge, but wasn't it the federal government that came in '84 and forced us to create this this jail to begin with, because the old jail was?
That is my understanding, yes.
But because of that, we were already sort of behind the 8 ball and like, quick, we just need a jail. I want to thank all of y'all for coming, because the hard work, like you said, that you guys have put in, and all the overtime and the trips to not very fun places. Even if they were to come in, hey, we've already got this in motion. We're working on it. We're conscious of the need, and it's not just going to be a fix. However many decades our temporary fix is, it's going to be. This could really be a permanent fix. So,
thank you for that. And yes, we're honored to have the opportunity to present this to you all. And I just want to make certain as we close that you hear that we are all united in this. We're all 100% together, and we're all asking you to help us take the next step, because I certainly don't know square footage and all that. We have Doug Shaw here, but we really need some agency like the NCSC to come in and say, this is what you need, and here's what you're going to need 40 years from now, and that's what that does. So thank you all. Do you any other questions?
What do you need from us? Do you need a vote from us to allow you to ask for bids? Right.
Open for bids.
Because they need to figure out how they're gonna
Well, the needs assessment is what we need to pay for, like what we're gonna need, not just us lawyers going, this is what I think, but actual professionals that can actually gauge this.
Because I'm not qualified to say that. I just know I'm the cheerleader here. So, so that's what we need, is that somebody come in and say, this is what you need for your jail, this is what you need for your courthouse. Now, what you do with it next is a whole different question. We just need somebody to tell us what we need. And that's where Dr. Simmons is here, because this is something he is intimately familiar with and has done many times in many other counties.
Yes, sir. So we need, I guess, a vote, if you can take one tonight or later, to have a needs assessment study. And again, National Center for State Courts is probably the most reputable, because they're, again, non-biased. They just come into Spalding County and say, hey, I see what you have. I see what your trends are. I see what your case count may be in 10, 15, 20 years. And this is what we recommend. And then it's up to you all to approve or not to approve how we move forward. But they are the professionals on how to do this type of work. And so I would ask, and I've been working with Spalding for 17 years. I know what you need. And I think they would give you a great report, non-biased, to tell you what we need. So that's what we want. And again, purchasing could do the bidding, however you want to do it. I'll be happy to lend my expertise to that area. That's what I do. And so that's the ask tonight, that you would allow us to do a needs assessment study with an independent vendor or professional organization that would come in and just see what we have and then make some recommendations.
I just need to, okay.
So first of all, this was not on the agenda, not an action item. It was a presentation. But I hear what you guys are saying. When the sheriff talks, I want to make sure that we all understand that the situation at the jail is an entirely different situation than at the courthouse. And when I look at the efforts that we're making to try to create court space now by moving the tax commissioner somewhere else, so possibly there will be court space there, that is costing, and you're a taxpayer here, that is costing taxpayer money. We are investing that money. We're putting $3.5 million into putting a Band-Aid on the jail. So what I guess my question in terms of needs assessment is, your needs assessment has to be guided towards something. It has to be guided toward new facilities. It has to be guided toward figuring out how you can take the facilities that you have already and utilize them. Mr. Simmons' suggestion about perhaps maybe if we get a new facility, being able to lease that space out to the federal government. If we could fix it up good enough to lease it out to the federal government, we could fix it up good enough for us to use it. So I just want, first of all, I would have loved it if you guys had come to us during the budget process, because clearly this is outside of the budget process. And that may be something that you may be able to come to us and bring as an item. I have no idea what a needs assessment for you may cost, but certainly there needs to be a funding mechanism. So I just think that as a board, yes, you gave us a presentation. Personally, I haven't had enough time to digest what it is that you have said to us tonight, and I do have questions about it. So for that reason, I'm not comfortable in voting on anything that the public didn't know was supposed to be voted on tonight. So, I feel like if we need to discuss it, fine. But, jumping from A to B says to me, we need to figure out, are we going to spend this money here on repairs and fixing, or we're going to take that same money and do your needs study, and then you back some repairs and fixings off? Because the money is not in this year's budget. That's the bottom line for me.
I'd like to learn a little bit more about maybe that's what it is, the cost of a needs assessment study. I mean, you said, what does it take? I mean,
Yeah,
I think once we have those figures.
That makes complete sense.
To know
That makes complete
moving
sense. And so just to even have it on your radar tonight is an accomplishment, in my opinion. So yes, you're right. It is a cost associated with that. And of course, you all have a purchasing department that would would put something out there like a bid or what have you, and folks would bid on that. So there is a cost associated. I think the most important thing is, I'm not sure that we can continue to ignore it, as if it doesn't exist.
Right.
All right? And so you're right, that if we can fix it up for feds, why can't we use it? But you can put a number on how many people you can house in a federal prison, but you can't put a number on what the future growth of Spalding County is going to be, because it's going to grow, right? So I'm in complete agreement with you in that putting this on your radar so that we can move forward with a plan is what we're here for, in my opinion.
Can we get a consensus to ask them to ask for those proposals? And then we can come back and vote to actually spend that money or not at a different meeting. But can we get a consensus from us to allow them to go forward and simply ask, for bids essentially for this needs assessment? Can we do that tonight?
I'm okay with that.
I think that's okay.
I mean, we're not okay spending any money, we're not okay anything, we're just.
To move forward, because at the end of the day, we know.
So what does that mean in English? Giving them permission to go and ask about a needs assessment. Because your needs assessment cost is going to be based on the amount of information that you have to garner, the amount of information you have to go through, the statistics associated with it, including the cost. And as I said before, the true emergency here is the jail. I got nothing against the court, but if we're talking about federal government unlivable housing circumstances, people having to work in the hallway is nothing compared to people having rusty water leaking on their head while they're incarcerated and can't do anything better about it. So a needs assessment could tell us that, but when we did our needs assessment for transportation, we all shared where we were. And we told them what we were looking for. And what my fear would be is that your needs assessment will come back saying, you need a full jail and you need a full whatever, Clayton County Law Enforcement Center. What good is that gonna do if we don't have an idea where the money's gonna come from? So will the needs assessment also share with us the possibilities of funding? Because I think that's what happened with us when we did our needs assessment for transportation, that they also came back with us with recommendations of where some of that funding could come from. I'm just one vote.
Right.
I'm just saying I don't feel good stepping over the line without having more information.
You bring up some really good points, but I think what we're asking for is those questions to be answered with the needs assessment. So you're asking some good questions. We won't know that until they come back and tell us what it entails.
I think they would come back with some ways that we could currently cut costs. Like you saw in the presentation, there's a huge cost to transporting inmates back and forth to court every time. Whereas if, like Fayette County, like Clayton County, it was one facility that just walked down a hall, that's $1 million a year or so that we save. So I think in the assessment itself, it would come back with some of those. Right now the guard to inmate ratio is staggeringly low, whereas in Clayton County, again, it's like one guard to like 300 inmates. So again, you could look at it and say, well, it costs this much and it would cost that much, so this net savings again could be rolled into paying for. And I think that
that number is not what I'm saying, it could be how much does it cost to transport inmates with our guard. Well, we're paying them already. They're going to be at work anyhow. So is it going to be $100,000? Is it going to be $1 million, or is it only going to be $200,000? Those are the numbers that will come from the sheriff's department.
Well, for one example, like what Judge Stacker was talking about, it was originally 5 courtrooms, or 5 judges, now there's 13. When my court services personnel were staffed, they were staffed at 10. Most judges want 2 court services personnel in their courtroom. That's not counting court services personnel to transport inmates back and forth. So if we're gonna have 13 courts going at some times, or all these different courts going, even at Judge Ott's juvenile court, we've got to provide personnel to work those places. And we've already stopped a lot of our people in court services from doing some of the things they were doing in the past, like record keeping inside the courtroom. Their duty is to guard the courtroom. So that money is going to have to come from somewhere, but that extra staff to do that. So it is going to be a cost one way or the other. I think what we're asking for, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, is we're just asking for the go-ahead to go out and see how much it's going to cost to do the needs assessment, and to get permission to go out and do the needs assessment, just the gathering of the information to find out how much it's going to cost, like put it out for bids and things like that.
Yeah, and then we can come back later and vote to spend the money or not. Right now, we're just giving them
And
direction to go and
that
find more.
report would
Yeah,
also
this
have
is
the
not a-
leasing, give you some leasing mechanism in there as far as that potentiality, it would cover all that as well, right?
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
gonna play a big
Yes,
piece
ma'am.
for me in there.
We're looking for permission to move forward. Nothing can be done without your approval.
I understand that.
yes,
I
ma'am.
understand that,
Yes, ma'am.
but when I hear people saying, yes, we're gonna possibly, we can do, well, first of all, I haven't heard anyone say anything about how it's gonna be funded.
Yes, ma'am.
Which, that's, I can't even get my hand up that high as far as where that is in terms of the money. And I get that. But if you have the capability to go out to a source and say, this is what we have, can you give us an idea? It costs you nothing, it costs us nothing. You don't even need our permission to do that because you already have a committee that we have allowed you to operate under.
Yes,
And if you're able to do that, then it's easier for us to say, where can we get $30,000? Or where can we get $300,000 according to what it costs?
Yes, ma'am.
That is no, I mean, we're not saying that we're committed to anything. I just want everybody to be clear that the money is not in the budget for anything right now. So when you come back and you know you need money, that's the conversation we'll have.
Yes, ma'am. Duly noted. And I want to put a plug in here for the sheriff, because even with an assessment, when we come back with the figures, if you approve it, and however we move forward, it's going to take some time. But our situation at jail is a safety issue
Right.
for them, with the antiquated board system and opening doors and just our people that's working in the jail. So I certainly stand in solidarity with the sheriff from a safety standpoint, as a fix for how long this might take, because it's going to be a minute, no matter what we do.
And I certainly don't want to open any
Yes,
can
ma'am.
of worms right here. But I got to ask the question here, looking at the mold and things like that could be forming in there. I mean, legally, Lord forbid if anything were to happen as a result of that, we would be looking at that ourselves, right?
Yes, ma'am. Because I think Ms. Wyndham backed me on this one time before. The way that the case law reads is that the sheriff's office occupies the building, but the building itself is the responsibility of the county of Spalding.
That is correct.
So, yeah, when it comes to me, it will come to y'all as well, so.
Yeah.
It's us all that.
My closing thoughts as we wrap up ours is just simply this, that you all have said on several different times in several different ways, how did we get here? Well, this is the cost of inaction. This moment here could have been anticipated many, many years ago, and wasn't. We're simply doing the best we can at this moment with what we've got, with the momentum that we have forward. And I just want to reiterate, we are not asking for money. We are asking for permission to look into having someone who knows what they're doing tell us what our best next step is, and then bring that back to you.
And I say, on my end, I say yes.
Mr.
I
Chairman.
wanted to just say one more thing to Judge Thacker.
Yes,
Judge
Commissioner.
Thacker, when and if you engage someone about the needs assessment, or Mr. Simmons, Dr. Simmons does that, I would very much be interested in hearing what the suggested game plan is for us. I mean, if we started digging today, it would be 36 months before a facility could be built. I'm just saying.
I don't know.
So, but I'm also saying that in the meantime, what do? We still don't want to spend another $5 million to make sure that the plumbing is working at the jail. Is there a potential for a game plan leading up to where the facility would be ready? Because we could very easily be
We're
caught in
doing
the
that
middle
as
of
well. That's just not part of this presentation. So
Right,
we
okay.
we have a whole secondary line of things that we're doing on that end that's not part of this, Commissioner
Okay.
Flowers Taylor. So I just
All
want you to know,
right, thank you.
we have multiple fronts on this. It's just this specific front, this specific time on this agenda item.
Well, thank you
All
for
right,
bringing this.
do we have consensus?
Mr. Chairman, while it would not be appropriate to actually vote right now. You could amend the agenda, and I think what you may be, what I'm hearing is that it would cost the county very little to actually put out an RFP for this needs assessment, and with the help of Dr. Simmons, I think we would be able to put one together that adequately addresses what you're looking for.
So what you're
Dr.
saying
Ledbetter?
is to amend the agenda to include that as an action item?
If you wanted to approve that at this particular meeting.
As like
then
an
yes.
official RFP as opposed to empowering them to go and doing it?
Yes.
Yeah, we shouldn't be doing an RFP off of a presentation. We need to take some time and look at the information. I mean, if y'all are good with doing it, fine, but I'm
And hey,
not putting my name
and I will
on
apologize to you all that we got here at my request. And clearly, I did not communicate clearly enough with you all that I should have been on the new business section. And so I just want to say I'm very sorry for any confusion there was, and I take full responsibility for being in the wrong section of the agenda. I should have slowed down and said, hey, I am going to ask you all for a vote at the end. And so I just wanted to say I sincerely apologize for how I got us onto the agenda and any mistakes I made in that area.
But we needed to hear the presentation, so I think you were probably where you were supposed to be on the agenda. I think we can probably still get a consent, what we said before, just give them the okay to go ahead and move forward. I mean, Stephanie, can we not do that? I mean, we're not really voting.
You can give your consent for them to move forward,
I think
yes.
that's what they're asking for anyway right now, right?
As opposed to the county doing an RFP, just having them go and
We've
find
given the
out
consent.
those numbers.
I think we've got,
All right. Consensus? I'm looking for everybody to,
Absolutely.
Ryan's good.
okay.
Definitely a 4-1 consensus.
All right. Thank you. We want to thank
Go forth and bring
everybody.
some more.
This is a big issue facing our county. Make sure there is no doubt that this is going to be around for a while. This is big, big, big money.
In dollar terms, I don't know of a bigger one that's ever come before the county.
So we talk about $10 million here and there. This is not going to be in that category. This is going to be big, 150, 180, $200 million that we're going to have to figure out how to work. So this is huge. That's why we've got everybody trying to work it together. We want to hear the best brains. Any ideas anybody has, please come forth. Let us hear that. Please talk to the committee to be able to get that. I'd also like to thank Judge Thacker and all the judges that came out tonight. I was a little bit concerned to make sure that I was in the right place and everything was good. So, all right, thank you much. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Judge Thacker.
Thank you all.
Thanks to Rachel for coming.
All right. Item number 3, presentation of host versus lost, presented by ACCG. Clint Mueller from ACCG is here to make a presentation to give everybody the background. As you remember, first we brought up an alternate method to just talk about. Just a second. If we could get everybody to please step on out of the room when you're talking so we can move forward.
Judicial conference in the back.
Yes. We brought up an alternate idea of doing host as opposed to lost. I want to make sure that everybody understands that that was an idea at that time. Some people ran and said, oh, we're moving to host. This is how it's going to be. We brought it up simply to start the conversation to see what host was, to see how it was going to work. Right now, so everybody understands where my position is, we are doing lost. We're going to continue to negotiate lost. That is our position to be able to do this with. If lost does not work with us, then we will talk about host. But right now, just like in years past, lost is the method that we're moving down. But we as a staff have a responsibility if lost doesn't work. What's the alternative we're going to do? And one of the alternatives we're looking at is host. With that, Clint Mueller from ACCG.
Thank you, Spalding County Board of Commissioners, Dr. Ledbetter, for having me here. My name is Clint Mueller. I'm the Legislative Director for the Association of County Commissioners of Georgia. We serve as the association for all 159 county governments in the state. I've been asked to come here to talk a little bit about the homestead option sales tax. A lot of people don't know much about this tax because we only have 2 counties in the state that have it. That's Rockdale County and DeKalb County. Just to give you a little bit of background, host was not created until 1995. It's a general law put on the books, so anybody that qualifies under the general law can utilize it. However, there was a provision that was added there that says if you've got a local option sales tax, a lost, you're not eligible for this. Most counties had a lost before 1995. That's why most counties have never been eligible to consider a host. However, if loss were to go away, it does become an option. It was originally enacted for DeKalb County, Georgia. DeKalb County was one of our few counties that did not have a lost. They didn't even have a splost. They were ineligible because of the MARTA tax for a splost. So they had no penny for capital or operations at the time. They did go out to referendum for a lost tax. It failed in the referendum. And then they decided to regroup, and they thought up the homestead option sales tax is a type of 1% sales tax that they thought they could sell to their voters. And when they put that one out to referendum, it passed. So they were the first to pass it. So again, that's just a little history, a little context of where the host came from. Y'all feel free as I go through this, if y'all have any questions, to stop me and ask me. So what is a host? Okay, a host stands for homestead option sales tax. It really, in the most simplistic terms, it's you're creating a homestead exemption, and you're funding it with sales tax. So most of your homestead exemptions that you all have now, you're basically reducing property taxes, and you have to shift those property taxes elsewhere, right, to get the amount of property taxes you need to fund your budget. With a host, you're simply funding that homestead exemption with a sales tax instead. It is collected countywide. It's a special district tax imposed countywide. It's 1%, levied on the same tax base as the state sales tax. There's two exceptions there. It would apply to food. So this is like food you buy in the grocery store. The state sales tax does not apply to. But your local splost pennies and your lost sales tax does apply to food right now. So it would be the same tax base as your lost and splost. Also applies to motor fuel tax. So the primary purpose is you have to, by law, have to use 80% of those revenues for your homestead exemption. Secondary purposes, you can. Now, this is not required. This is simply at your option to use up to 20% for capital outlay expenditures. Again, you don't have to use any of it if you don't want to for capital. You can use 100% of it for the homestead exemption, but you must use at least 80% of it. I think the capital expenditures were probably put in there because remember I said DeKalb didn't have access to splost. That's probably why that was put in there, to give them some funding for their capital needs that they couldn't access to splost like you all can.
Question.
Yes.
So, just saying, if there was a community who had a host, and using 80% of their revenues, they were able to reduce homeowners' property taxes to 0, and they still had 30% of their hosts left, that would just have to roll over to the, I mean, what happens if that is a continuous thing? Because obviously you can only use 20% for any other capital project, so.
Like if it only needed 70% of that to reduce, and it'd still be an extra 10, yeah.
Yeah, I understand the question. So the question is, you've rolled property taxes as far back as you can, do 100% exemption, and you can't only use up to 20% for capital, and you still have money. I'm going to get to that, but
Okay, I'm sorry.
that's excess funds. Okay. So the short answer to your question is you can use it to roll back the millage rate, because remember, what you're doing here is just on homesteaded property.
Right.
But after you've wiped out the taxes on homesteaded property, and you've done these things, then you can take the rest and just use it to lower the millage rate across the board. So all other non-homesteaded property, so we get a benefit out of that.
Okay.
I'll get to that. This is a very sensitive, controller here. Make sure, okay. Yeah, so it applies to the county M&O levies. So you may have, some counties have special service districts and other M&O levies other than general M&O levy. All counties have a general M&O levy. But it does exclude any bond levy. So if you were to do some sort of a general obligation bond levy, you could not use this to, yeah, that would be separate from that. This was added, so as you all know, DeKalb County has several new cities that were created recently. This was added to the law for those new cities. But as you'll also see, even though it can apply to any city, we haven't had any down in this part of the state that I'm aware of created since this date. So it does require that some of this host revenue be shared with your municipalities, but it's qualified municipalities, and that definition of a qualified municipality includes they have to be created after, and I think I got the date wrong here. Yeah, that's right, January 1 of 2007. So you all haven't obviously had a city created after that date. So your city, and I think y'all just have one city here? Three cities. Okay, so your 3 cities would not be eligible under this law. There is what we call an initial windfall period. So what is that? You have to collect for a full calendar year before, and then the following year, after you've collected for a full calendar year, that's when you start doing your homestead exemption. So what do you do with all that money you collect up front, right? And I'll talk about this when I get to the timeline, because I did a little timeline for Spalding County, but you all could collect up to a year and a half worth of sales tax revenue before you get to the year where you give your homestead exemption. So what do you do with that quote windfall revenue? Well, the law is pretty specific about how you utilize it. And it's not real specific. It just says you can spend it on any supplementary powers under the Georgia Constitution. So that's most of your county services. So what you could do is you could just use it to lower the millage rate. Now keep in mind, if you use it to lower your millage rate because you're paying for all these services that you would normally be using your general property taxes to pay for, when the windfall goes away and you start doing the homestead exemption, of course your homeowners are going to be protected, right? Because they're going to have the exemption in place. But everybody else, you're probably going to have to go back up on the millage on everybody else, or go back to where you were. Maybe not any higher than where you were.
So if we lowered the millage rate for everyone,
right,
we would run the risk of perhaps having to raise the millage rate back to where we were before.
Oh, it would.
Right. So let's say that you lose your local option sales tax. I'm just going to make up a number. It's 10%. You're given about a 10% reduction on your county property taxes. So to offset losing the local option sales tax, you all decide we're just going to lower our millage rate across the board by 10%. So we're trying to hold people harmless. Okay, so you do that with the windfall funds, or some of the windfall funds, but it may not take all of them. But when that period goes away and you have to start funding the homestead exemption, you may find other funds by then, I guess, to keep the millage rate down, but you may be faced with having to go back to where the millage rate was. That's just something to think about. But again, I just wanted to say that the windfall funds are very flexible in how you use those, the upfront funds. Excess funds, this goes, Commissioner Flowers, yes, this goes to your question. The excess funds are to be used for a millage rate rollback. So if you've exhausted all this and you've provided 100% homestead exemption, then you've spent up to.
You must or you may?
Well, you'll have no other choice but to do that.
There's nothing else to spend the money on.
If you're providing 100% homestead exemption on all your county millage rates except for bond levies, and you're using 20% for capital, which is the max you can use for capital, then you have no choice but everything that's left to do a across-the-board millage rate rollback with everything left. This tax is, like lost, unlike splost, is not subject to periodic renewals. So once it's put into place, it's a permanent revenue source for you. It can be, it can be terminated, but you'd have to go back out to referendum specifically to terminate this tax.
To terminate.
Right. So it works, more like the lost. You would have to have a referendum. Other than failing to renegotiate loss, the only other way to terminate lost tax is to have a referendum to terminate it. This is similar to that. It stays in place permanently until you have a referendum to repeal it.
That was my question, too.
So a little bit compare and contrast between the lost and the host. So the lost provides tax relief, obviously, for all types of properties. First of all, the county's only getting a piece of it, right? You get a percent, you don't get the whole penny, you get a piece of it, and then you take whatever you get, your share of it, and you're spreading it across the entire tax digest. So commercial, industrial, everybody gets something. I've seen, and I don't know what it is in your county, I'm sure your finance officer could probably run the numbers, but I've seen in a lot of counties, it's probably saving people maybe 10% on their property tax bill. I've seen it low as 3 or 4%, seen as high as 15, 20%. You know, it varies from depending on how much sales tax you raise and how much your digest is worth. As I mentioned, it's obviously shared with the cities, and you have to use all of it for the property tax rollback. You have to show that on the property tax bill. With host, what you're doing is you're taking now the full penny, so you're not sharing any of it with the city, so you get the whole penny to yourself, but you're taking all of it and you're targeting it all on homesteaded properties, which is just a piece of your digest. So you all could see how much property tax is generated from your homesteaded properties, right? Mm-hmm. And you can see how much you collect, say, from SPLOST or LOST annually, and start comparing those numbers, and you can see what you can do with it. I live in Cherokee County, which is one of the counties that is eligible for this. They did a study several years ago, and they showed that they could wipe out their county property taxes with only 60% of the revenue. Now, Cherokee County's got a pretty good digest, pretty good sales tax collections up there, so you all may not be in the same boat, but that was pretty impressive that they could do away with all county property taxes on homesteaded property with only 60% of this penny. To give, then they would have the rest, right, to use for either capital, or they could put the whole remaining 40% towards millage reduction.
But only 20 could go towards capital.
Yes.
The other 20 would have to go into millage rate reduction.
Yes, yes.
So through a host, not only it's designed to lower property taxes for all homeowners.
Right.
But if the collection is enough, it would also lower millage rates across the board for business owners and everyone else.
That's correct, yes.
That was the other question. I know that maybe you're going to get there when we talk about businesses and industries. Are you going to talk about that, how they are affected?
Yes.
Are they affected? You're going to talk about
Yeah,
that?
I'll mention that.
Okay.
I'll get to that.
All right.
So it does provide you with a permanent funding source for capital needs. Sounds like y'all have a few here. Eliminates, obviously, lost negotiations, so you don't have to go through that exercise every 10 years. And, of course, right now, the unincorporated residents get the same rollback from the county as the city residents do on loss, but the city residents get, in addition to that, additional city rollback. So it would eliminate that. Other benefits, again, I've talked about the windfall. You can use it for special service districts if you have any. So I know sometimes in SDS negotiations, funding for special service districts comes up. You can use this to offset that. Yes.
But you can put it just into the fund balance to build reserves.
Yeah, with the windfall. Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, if you did not want to roll back the millage rate to offset whatever they lose in lost rollback, you could just stick it in your general fund. You could use it for capital. All of that windfall for capital.
Just putting it into because we've eaten down our fund balance.
Yes, we have.
Like in a big way.
You can parse it out however you want, right? So you can use it, part of it for a millage rate rollback, part of it for boosting your fund balance, part of it for capital. Really, it's flexible there in how you use that. And when I get to that, it looks like, well, if you're able to get it done and start collecting July 1 of next year, you'd have about a year and a half of that revenue to do what you needed to do with it. Transfer a portion of the tax burden to non-residents. Well, that's kind of with all sales tax, that a lot of people like sales tax because it's a consumption tax, and you're hopefully generating some of it from people that don't live here or people, coming here to shop. And you're offsetting your homeowner's property tax burden with that. Provides additional financial protection to non-income producing property. I know one thing that we hear about a lot is with your primary residence that you live in, you're not making income off of it because you live there. Most other types of properties, you have the potential to generate income. Obviously, rental properties, you can generate income, and commercial properties, industrial properties, agricultural properties. Those all are income generating and so you can help offset your taxes with your income. Your primary residence, what happens if you can't pay that? Well, you can have your house sold on the courthouse steps and lose your roof over your head, right? And so some people would say, look, if I've got to give tax relief priority, I prefer to give the tax relief priority to the roof over my head that I can't make income off of before anything else. Well, this does that, right? This says we're going to first look after the homesteaded property and give the tax relief there first. And then if we have anything left over, we'll give it to everybody else. But that's where we're going to focus the tax relief. There are some negatives, and I've got some of those later on, and I'll talk about those. One, I'll go ahead and mention, because I probably should put it next to the benefits, because I like everything. There's pros and cons to everything. So, one question that comes up is the businesses, right? They get probably more out of a local option sales tax than they would get out of a host, because you would have to just have money left over from a host, and only then would you provide them any kind of tax relief through a millage rate rollback. So your businesses probably prefer the local option sales tax. Your renters, remember, a lot of times the property taxes paid on rental property get passed on by the landlord to the tenant, and those renters, they're not homesteaded properties, right? So they're not going to get this, so the renters aren't really going to benefit by this. They may benefit a little bit from loss because their landlord gets a break on their property taxes through loss tax that they would not get through the host tax.
But they wouldn't be taxed any more than they currently are. They just wouldn't get.
They just wouldn't get the loss rollback.
They just wouldn't get any more rollback.
Right. They give up their loss rollback, and they don't gain a host exemption in place of it. And then one other thing that I hear that comes up from time to time is, does this take political pressure off the Board of Commissioners? Because you've protected now, kind of insulated your homeowner. So if you raise your millage rate, right, as long as you got enough money to give them the 100% homestead exemption, which you may or may not, right, you could get to a point where you can't give 100% homestead exemption. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But if they're getting 100% homestead exemption, they probably really don't care what you do with the millage rate, as long as they're not paying any additional taxes. And so who the people that probably scream the loudest to you all when you're setting the millage rate? Is it your homeowners? Is it your businesses? Is it the people, foreign investors that have property here? It's probably your homeowners, right? And so you're kind of taking that pressure off, which some people feel like, well, that maybe that's not good to take that political pressure off the Board of Commissioners, because maybe they'll let the millage rate creep back up. In fact, DeKalb County, though, that has this tax, has one of the highest general M&O millage rates in the state. So now whether that's attributable to this or not, we can only speculate. But that is something I just wanted to bring up for your consideration, that it does take some political pressure. You all may like it, that it takes some political pressure off of you. I don't know, your people that have to pay the property tax that aren't protected by the homestead exemption may not like taking that political pressure off of you. Whoops. Okay, let's talk just real briefly about the timeline for implementation. First of all, this one, because you got a homestead exemption involved, you have to have local legislation passed at the General Assembly. For those of you that don't know what local legislation is, it's a law passed at our state General Assembly, but it has the impact of only affecting one county. So that would set up your referendum for your homestead exemption. You'd have to pass that first. Then the Board of Commissioners would have to pass the resolution calling for the referendum. You could have a situation where they pass the local act and you all decide not to call for it. And then after the Board of Commissioners calls for the referendum, obviously you've got 29 days to notify prior to the election, you got to have notification to the election superintendent. 90 days with other elections, like the presidential preference primary and the general election. I think for the March election next year, and I'll get to this, it's 29 days. And then when you have the local referendum, it's a two-part question. The voters are voting on two things. They're voting on whether they want the homestead exemption and whether they want the 1% sales tax to fund the homestead exemption. And both questions have to pass. If they don't both pass, you don't get it. So that sometimes is a little confusing to the voters, because some people say, yeah, I want the homestead exemption, but I don't want to pay the 1% sales tax. Well, you can't have your cake and eat it too here. You got to pass the funding source for it. And then, as I mentioned earlier, you got to collect for a full calendar year before providing the mandatory homestead exemption. If the referendum fails, you can't call another host referendum for 24 months. So there's a pretty big gap there. Resolution calling for the collection of the tax within 30 days of the certified election results. And then collections actually begin first day of the next calendar quarter that is more than 80 days after the resolution is adopted. I'm going to go back through this, but I'm going to use you all specifically when I do.
Thank you.
So here's my example timeline. So let's just say, what if, right? What if the loss goes away at the end of this year and the door is open now for you all to do a host? Well, first of all, you're going to have a very short window to try to get local legislation passed at the General Assembly. And there's a lot of things that have to happen to do that. And remember, this is the first year of the biennial down there at the General Assembly. So they got a lot of new faces, lots of new leadership positions that they got to appoint. It's not going to be a quick start to the General Assembly is my point.
Okay.
Then you've got to get, so you got to get your local delegation, right? Your House members and your senators on board with doing this, or else you're dead in the water. And if they're on board doing it, then they probably were going to have to go to leadership and say, can you make some special exceptions so we can run this through quickly? Because local legislation tends to hang out there to the end of the session because there's not in a hurry to do it, right? It's not subject to the crossover day rules, and a lot of people do it at the end of the session. You all would have to have this done at the beginning of the session to make all this work if you're going to get it in place as soon as possible. So you're looking, the session starts January the 9th. You'd probably need it done in early February, and that means passed the House, the Senate, and signed by the governor, all of that. So that's not a small order there. That
We have
could be
plenty.
pretty difficult. And we don't lobby on local legislation.
We have
You
you.
may-
We have David Knight, I'm sure. We have.
Yeah, and for local legislation in general, you got to run the ad in the paper before you can even introduce the bill once the session is going. So all that takes time. So let's say you get your local legislation passed. Then prior to February 21st, you have to pass the Board of Commissioner resolution and notify the election superintendent. So that's your deadline to get all of that and notify your election superintendent. Then you'd hold your special election on March 21st of next year. And then, assuming that passes, then before April 11th, you'd need to get the election, hopefully the election will be certified by then. I don't know with some of the things that have gone on in Georgia over past elections, it's taken a little bit longer to certify some of these elections. But you got to have your election certified, and you got to pass your Board of Commissioner resolution to impose the tax. So there's another BOC resolution required after the referendum passes. So if all that goes well, then July 1, 2023, you can begin collections. And then you'll probably receive your first check probably late August, probably late August before you get your first check.
So we couldn't apply it in 2024? That would be against the rules to apply the homestead exemption in 24?
Yeah, because you're not going to collect for a full calendar year, right? You're going to collect for
Half year.
5 or 6 months, yeah, of 2023. Full calendar year is going to be all of 2024.
So you have to collect for a full calendar
That's
year.
what the current law says. It doesn't say full year. If it said full year, you could do, it says full calendar year. So yes, you would have to go and collect all of 2024 and then apply your homestead exemption on the tax bills in 2025. Now, in the interim, you're going to be collecting all the sales tax revenue, and you can again use it to try to adjust the millage rate down or other things that you want to use it for.
You could take the millage rate down
to try to.
for everybody, just like
Right,
we do.
just
under
like
the
for
current-
loss.
Correct.
Yeah, you could probably, because you're going to get more money than you get out of loss, because remember, you're getting all 100% of this. So let's say if you're getting 65% of loss, then you could probably take 65% of this penny and do a millage rate reduction with it and get about the same results on the county property tax bill and still have the rest left over to do other things with.
Okay.
Some political considerations. I know you all always consider those. So, people ask about this. I said, whether you like it or don't like it, it's like everything else. It depends on where you sit, right? Everybody's different. If you're a voter, if you're voting selfishly for yourself as a voter, and the only thing you own is a home that's your primary residence, and you got a homestead exemption, then you should probably be for this, because you're going to get much more property tax relief out of this than you get out of anything else, including those in the cities. A city resident that gets 100% exemption potentially on their county property taxes is going to get far more than they get now out of the rollback they get both from the city and the county.
So they get it too.
So again, for your homesteaded property owner, this makes a lot of sense for their pocketbook. Now, for all your non-homesteaded property owners, again, your renters, your businesses, everybody else, the loss probably makes more sense for them
But
financially.
again, they're not losing, they're just not getting the rollback that the host would get.
Yeah, they're losing the loss, right? If that goes away, that's what they're losing. But the homesteaded property owners are also losing the loss because it's going away for them, but they're picking up something better, right? So they're losing, like, when we looked at it in Cherokee County, the loss would have given me about a 10 to 12% reduction on my property tax bill. The host was going to give me 100%. Well, I'll take 100% over 12% any day of the week, right? So I would vote, if I voted selfishly, because I only own a home, give me the 100%.
So what if you had a business and you have a home?
Well, let's say that same scenario, you're getting 10, 12% off with lost, but you're picking up zero with host, potentially, unless you've got money left over and you do some millage rate reduction. Well, you're losing the lost. And so from that standpoint, the businesses aren't getting a replacement property tax offset.
So you lose on the business side of it, but you gain on the homeowners.
But I'm still lost on that, I'm sorry. So the host is designed for 80%, it must be spent on rolling back homestead exemption.
Yes,
property
80% for
tax.
homestead, right.
But the loss doesn't have any such requirement, does it? Loss
Yes.
is just extra money that goes into general
No,
funds.
no, no, it's a mandatory rollback. You all have to show that on the property tax bill. Everybody should see a dollar amount on their property tax bill due to the lost rollback. So everybody knows exactly what they're getting off their property tax bill.
Who does that target? Just everybody? That's
Everybody.
general?
So if I owned a big manufacturing facility here, I'd see it on my property tax bill too as the owner of a manufacturing facility. Guess whose property's worth more? The manufacturing facility or the home? I mean, see what I'm saying? But a lot of the loss goes to the non-homesteaded property because that's where the dollar value is. Your commercial and your industrial properties, that's where the
So in general,
yeah.
bigger businesses and people that own like a bunch of like rental properties,
Right.
landlords, they're the ones that in general are against this, whereas homeowners are in general for.
If they're voting financially for what's in their best interest, yes. So, yeah, if I own an apartment complex, it's a $5 million apartment complex, when I lose lost, I may lose 10% of that rollback that I was getting. I may lose the rollback. Let's say it was 10% of my taxes. I lose that, but I'm not necessarily going to pick up anything on the host because it's not homesteaded, and you may or may not have enough money left over to roll back the millage rate. But
the millage rate, if it's rolled back, that means it's rolled back for everybody.
Yes.
Which means that what's would be required to go toward the homestead is gonna be less. So if we give people a homestead exemption for their property, and the millage rate for my house is the same as the millage rate for Cooper Standard. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
if you reduce the millage rate at all, it's gonna reflect the homeowner as well as the business.
that's right.
So, but that's only if after you do the homestead exemption
Right.
for
That's
everyone.
that's last priority.
Yeah.
So it's only after you've wiped out the homestead exemption, and potentially you don't have to use any for capital. You could still take all of it. You could wipe out the property taxes on the primary residence, and then take everything left over and use it for a millage rate reduction. Of course, the homeowners get the millage rate reduction too, but it doesn't really matter to them, right? If you're wiping out their
Right.
taxes, I don't think they really care because. Just like they don't care when it goes up or down, because if they're getting 100%.
Right, so, but I'm saying if the millage rate actually goes down, what the homeowner would have been getting forgiven is gonna be less.
Yeah, yes. It costs less, the funding that homestead exemption as the millage rate goes down, it's a function of the millage rate and the value of the properties. It's both of those things. But yeah, if either one of those goes down, then the cost of funding those homestead exemption goes down.
Okay.
I keep saying 100%, but my second bullet point really highlights this. You got to be careful if you were to go out to referendum for the host that you don't sell it as 100% exemption. You may run the numbers and it may show that you can give 100% exemption initially, but that doesn't mean it'll always be that way.
And I'm sure it matters, I'm assuming it matters with the percentage of your homeowners in your, I'm like, if you're like maybe 70% homeowners in your county. I mean, those
Right.
numbers are.
Yeah, it might be
different.
harder to get
DeKalb,
to.
it's appeared, DeKalb, I'm sure
That's
their
right.
numbers are a lot higher than ours.
Yeah, it just depends on the mix in your digest. How much of your digest is made up of homesteaded property versus other types of property? If you get a lot of people moving here claiming homestead, I mean, then cost goes up for that. And your sales tax may or may not keep up with it, depending on how well your sales tax is doing, how much inflation you're getting in the, so it's really, you're looking at the inflation in your homestead exemption and the inflation in your sales tax, and are they keeping up? If they're not, then you may get to a point where even initially you could fund the 100%, one day you will not be able to fund the 100%.
That's concerning.
And that has happened, I believe, in DeKalb. I don't know if it's happened in, I think it's happened in Rockdale too. Think about when we go through a recession.
But the same will be true with the lost.
Yes.
If for some reason people start shopping here, if Barnesville and Pike County open their own Walmarts, and they stop driving here to go to our Walmart, like our lost collections would equally go down. And so we
That's
face
correct.
the same problem in the current lost that we would potentially in the host, correct? I mean, there wouldn't be any additional risk of that, would there?
No, you're right. If you lose sales tax under loss because of the economy, you lose the amount of rollback you give.
Yeah.
I'm just telling, so the point here I'm trying to make though is just be careful how you sell it.
Don't
because-
sell it as 100%.
Because I will tell you, and I won't name the county, but one of the counties that has this sold it as that. And they got to a point one day where they couldn't give 100% anymore. They were giving 90%. It's still still a lot, right? I'd take 90% over.
Yeah.
But some of the voters said, you kind of lied to us because you told us it was going to be 100%. We thought that was a guarantee. Well, it's not a guarantee. It's you got to use.
That's the goal.
Yeah, it's the goal, but
We've heard
it's
that
not a guarantee.
We've been down that road.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Again, it only applies to county taxes, so be careful there too, because people can get their tax bill and they're gonna say, well, I'm still,
It's supposed to be zero.
yeah, I thought it was supposed to be zero. Well, you still gotta pay school taxes. That's the bulk of most people's tax bill. Or you live in the city, you still gotta pay city taxes. So, yeah, you may wipe out the county tax, but that's only one component of the overall property tax bill.
Yeah.
And so they gotta pay still,
Let me just
yes.
ask this question while you're there, okay? Because normally we're looking at probably property taxes. Generally, we're looking at about what? Per year, we figured, well, let's say $2,000, $3,000, mainly for someone that's paying based on what, $200,000 home. Is that fair?
Okay.
A year? So, based on that number, that breaks out to be, like we said, about whatever it is a month they're paying. Not guaranteeing the 100%. So that's really not even, are they really going to see a decrease in their?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Because if 50% of your taxes are school board, then the other 50, if it's just the county, is going to be not on your taxes.
Right.
So if you're $2,000 and you get 100% of your taxes from the county exempted in homestead, then you're only paying,
1,000.
Right.
because you'll
Because
still be
you're-
paying your school taxes,
Yeah.
which is the other half.
Essentially, if you were a homeowner in the county, your taxes on your home would be reduced by 16.31 mils.
Okay.
318.
138.
16,138.
Whatever we just voted on.
6138.
Forget-
That brings up another thought. I don't think y'all have this in your county, but Cobb and Cherokee both have a very generous homestead exemption for seniors right now. If you're a homestead and you're over the age of like 62, you pay no school property taxes. So in that situation, you couple those two together, you could potentially wipe out their whole taxes. But that's unusual. We don't have but a handful of counties in the state that have given 100% school exemption for seniors.
Oh, okay.
Of course, the cities don't get any of the loss, the host, so I'm sure they prefer having the lost tax. And then we talked about businesses, back to your point, about them not getting maybe as much out of host, if anything, out of host, where they were getting something out of lost. As far as whether it affects economic development or not, I have no idea. I mean, in the long list of things that businesses look at when they're moving in or moving out, I don't even know that property taxes is too far up that list. I think it's probably, property taxes in general is pretty far down the list. And then, of course, you're just talking about an exemption off property taxes here, one way or the other. So I've heard both. You know, I've heard some chambers of commerce that have looked at this says, we don't like it. We think it is a deterrent to recruiting business by not having the loss roll back. I've heard others say, well, maybe it's not a deterrent, maybe it's a benefit because all those employees that work for the business, including the business owners themselves that probably have the highest cost or highest dollar cost homes, are selfishly thinking, I want to live in a county where I wipe out the county property taxes on my $2 million home if you're like the vice president of the commercial business or something. So I don't know. I really don't know that it has too much of an impact one way or the other as far as being an incentive or deterrent. But that's up to you all to think that through and talk to your Chamber of Commerce about that and see what people think as far as will this have any impact potentially on business recruitment and retention. And that's it. If I can answer any other questions for you, that's pretty much what a host is.
One of the things that and you kind of addressed it, you gave us a timeline, but in part of our talks during SDS, and when we talked about host before, we were kind of given the idea that there's like a year and a half before, I mean, you gave us a very succinct timeline, but in real life, it's like the end of October. So whether or not we could do that, if that doesn't go, then the next time that we could possibly do it would be in the fall or the next year.
Yeah, if you didn't get it done this legislative session, get your local legislation passed and do everything, then you're looking at another year. So I'll add a year to everything on my timeline.
So yeah. And I mean, I think the bigger question for us and for people who have had concerns about this, and I mean, I'm a city resident, so I understand that there's a problem for that, is that there's a lot of good stuff that can happen on the other side, but in the interim, there's gonna be some ugly stuff happening.
Yes.
Because there's gonna be a huge
Belt
loss
tightening.
of income. And so, you know, I'm hearing you talking,
Yeah.
I'm thinking, woo, that sounds good. But I'm thinking, who's gonna drag themselves through that hellfire to get to, you know, if we can't make it.
Yeah, you're right. If things don't go perfectly and you don't get it implemented next year,
We're gonna be hurting.
then now you're doing away with the loss, right, at the end of this year, and your taxpayers are not gonna have any kind of replace. You can't even roll the millage rate back potentially, because you don't have the sales tax coming in anymore.
It makes a lot to think about.
Yes.
And the selling point, like you mentioned before, of course, you can't, once you advertise the 100%, because we can't say that, right?
Right.
So that's another thing. I mean,
Yep.
people think 100%, we can't do it. That's probably a little negative right there, because we don't know.
Right.
And then, like you said on the referendum, we've got two questions you have to have on there. You have to vote for the homestead, and they have to vote for the 1% sales tax, and we know how our community feels about that, even though we know what the benefit would be, but that doesn't always come across in their eyes. So we have to bank on that passing. If we have not negotiated lost, and we move forward with this, and there's that tweak and it doesn't pass, what have we done to our county? What have we done? I'm asking you.
He don't know.
You lose the loss
You lose-
rollback,
yeah.
so unless you all
Our
have the
funding
funds
is
to
based on
cover
millage.
that for a period of time, then, yeah, people are gonna,
We're done.
even though the millage rate doesn't change, the bottom line increases because you lose that offset.
Yeah, and as the legislation for this particular option states, you cannot put it back on, you cannot put host back on the referendum for 24 months.
So, however,
We wouldn't have any money.
so my question is, if we let loss go, the only way to get loss back on is through a referendum.
Yes.
If we continue with loss, then it appears that we are only doing this every 10 years, unless we do something different to stop it, which is called for referendum, it will go indefinitely till 10 more years.
Yes.
So,
And the referendum, I will point out the referendum for loss to do away with it is a little different than host, because you got not only the county having to approve that referendum to vote whether voters want to do away with it or not, but the cities have to approve it too. Which to me seems almost impossible to think that you would get the county and cities to all say, yeah, we want to put this out to referendum, let the voters choose whether they keep lost or not.
yeah, but I'm just asking these questions because you don't want to be all the way out here with an empty bucket.
Yeah, buddy.
So.
Yeah, I tell you, this is my opinion here, but to make the host actually a true option, you need to go back into general state law and allow for a conversion where you have a referendum, a single referendum that allows you to take the penny that's already out there for lost and just convert its use.
Right, to host.
Right, to host, so it could basically happen immediately. So if you could do that, like if you could have the conversion referendum in March, you could be doing the homestead exemption at the end of next year with that type of, but that would require a change to state law to allow you to, in effect, have a referendum to convert. Or our current state law doesn't allow that.
Do that.
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, that's not local. Come on, that's it.
That's not local. That would be general legislation. It would be fought by a lot of people down at the Capitol.
All with very expensive shoes.
We can
on.
do host and SPLOS. I want to make sure.
Yeah.
We can do host and
Yeah,
SPLOS.
the only prohibition with host is having a lost at the same time. You
Okay.
can do SPLOS, T-SPLOS, all the others that are out there with the host.
Okay.
So currently, the loss collects around 13 million in total. Assuming that, a meteor doesn't destroy most of the planet and, or some other ridiculous thing, we can assume it's gonna be around there. 80, and we're currently collecting 5 million, something like, what was it, in homestead?
5.4 million.
Okay, so 80% of 13 is close to 9, if not more than 9. So we would, under the current numbers, like if everything stayed the same and we didn't have some sort of giant economic meltdown or whatever, or Zebulon and Barnesville and Milner all built their own Walmarts, like we could expect the same 13 million, and 80% of it would have to be used, but we'd only use 5, so we would have 4 million more to go towards that 80, right? Because you have to use the 80. So how many mills? How much is 1 mill?
1.8 mil would be about $4 million.
So if everything stayed the same right now, if we just use the 2022 numbers, you would reduce all homeowners' county property taxes by 16.318, and then every property tax at the county, businesses, everyone, by around 2, if the current numbers stayed exactly the same. So homeowners, no, I guess it would still cap at 16, right? You can't go negative. You can't. So they would pay nothing, and then but that would mean that everyone else would get even more than 2, because you're already lowering all of the homestead exemption, so you would be collecting in residual less than 1.8 per mil, so you'd probably get around 3 mils of property tax reduction. You following my math there?
Yes.
On like businesses and commercial properties and rental properties and everything else too, given the host.
So you're the only one that's following him. Y'all two we on this end over here, we got the line.
It sounds good, whatever you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Because we collect 13, so 8% of 13 is...
Using the 80 percentile for the use of revenue coming in for host against property taxes would reduce, according to Phil Sutton, it would be approximately 14 and some change for the millage rate, so it would reduce the millage rate by about 2 percentage points, or 2 full percentage points. 2 mils, sorry, please forgive me.
For
2
everyone
mils.
across
For
the board.
everybody. That would not only include those who were owners of rental property, but that would also include those who actually own businesses.
Is that true?
Okay, now
Yeah,
remember,
because
this
we
is,
have to use 80% of it.
This is a thought process. This
So,
is-
yeah, so we don't have to hold you hostage while we play with what we think
Yeah.
our brain is doing. I just wanna say, I think it was a very good presentation.
Thank you.
I know you'll be available to answer any questions. If we have any, we can call you up, but, I mean, this is what needs to happen for us. You know, we need to know all of these numbers, but that big gap, you know, we're hedging a lot. We're thinking of hedging a lot on this one thing. And I'm that person who is, that if anything can go wrong, it will. And then I don't, you know, I'm not
Murphy's there.
mad about having mud on my face, but I don't want people throwing mud at my house. Cause that's pretty much what it's gonna be if we have to do things because the money is
Well,
gone.
what we promised the taxpayers when we were here before we decided to not roll back the millage rate is they asked us to think outside the box.
Right.
And this is what we're doing. We're thinking outside the box. That's all we're doing, is thinking outside the box. We're doing what we were tasked to do.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean we're gonna do anything. We're just following orders. That's
Hey,
it.
Clint, I want to thank you as well, because a lot of times the presentations come in, and Judge Thacker's presentation tonight is the same way. It's not an agenda-driven, we only want you to hear one side of the argument like so many governments get from the people that represent, their interest. It wasn't a one-sided presentation. It was, here's the good, here's the bad. Again, we've heard, I'm sure the city's heard, a lot of presentations that come in and just sing the praises of something, as opposed to saying, hey, here's the reality, here's the good, here's the bad. And I think the message here is, for homeowners, this is a huge, huge net positive.
Yeah, it's like everything in this world. There's usually good and bad. There's very, what do they call it? There's very few silver bullets out there. Just about everything you talk about is a trade-off of things. So, somebody gets some good over here, but it usually at the expense of somebody's getting some bad over there. And this is no different when you're talking about tax policy. I like to use the analogy, if you take a balloon, right? And there's a set amount of volume of air in that balloon. What happens when you squeeze one end of that balloon?
It pops out in the other
But if you squeeze that in, you're still gonna have the same volume, it's just popping out in different places. And that's kind of like with the taxes. If you keep taxes the same, trade one penny for another penny, people are paying the same amount, so the volume of air is the same. All you're doing is squeezing it differently. And so in this situation, it's going to the homeowner getting more, everybody else getting less. And whether that's good or bad, that's a policy decision for you all. I mean, I've mentioned some arguments on both sides that I've heard out there, right? Pros and cons for people that'll tell you that's a bad thing to put more burden on the business.
It depends on where you sit.
Depends on what you sit.
You're gonna want to do this. If you're the city, you're not.
If
So, I mean,
you're
it
a
just is what
homeowner,
it
if
is.
you're a resident, this
Right.
is something that you
Yeah,
like.
not wanna do
And
it.
again, looking at the numbers that we just crunched tonight, it looks like on top of that, everyone also gets a 2 mil reduction. If the numbers stay the same, again, when that Williamson Walmart comes in, maybe not, but short of that, I think.
That's always the best thing, is if you can expand the air in the balloon, right? And get more
Right, right,
Walmarts, more sales tax. It
Right,
helps
right.
everybody.
All right, I think everybody's got,
Thank you,
there's more to
Clint.
do.
Y'all are welcome.
But Clint, we appreciate you coming. Thank you for coming here and talking to us about this. This is a big issue for us, and we're kind of wandering through the dark right now, so thanks
Sounds
for
like
the
y'all have a
flashlight.
lot of big issues with that previous presentation. That's a big issue too, so.
Yes,
Let us know
yes.
what we can do to help with thinking through where you can get funding for those types of capital projects as well. I know we've already been talking about some of those.
Yes, yes.
Thank y'all for
Jace
having
Bloss.
me.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Clint, safe travel.
Chase Bloss, that's right, Chase
All
Bloss.
right. Citizen comments. Speakers must sign up prior to the meeting and provide their names, addresses, and the topic they wish to discuss. Speakers must direct your comments to the board and not to individual commissioners or to the audience. Personal disagreements with individual commissioners or county employees are not a matter of public concern, and personal attacks will not be tolerated. The chairman has the right to limit your comments to the interest of disposing of county's business in an efficient and respectful manner. Speakers will be allocated 3 minutes to speak on their chosen topics as they relate to matters pertaining to the jurisdiction of the Board of Commissioners. No questions will be asked by any of the commissioners during citizen comments. Outbursts from the audience will not be tolerated. Common courtesy and civility are expected at all times during the meeting. No speaker will be permitted to speak more than 3 minutes or more than once unless the board votes to suspend the rule. Dr. Ledbetter?
First up this evening is Dr. Ushonda Jones. She'd like to speak on host and land bank.
Dr. Ushonda Jones. So,
Address, please.
no.
Oh.
Yeah. I've been swatted before. I prefer not to give it. So I want to talk about accountability is the word for the day. And I don't understand how certain members of the commission want to defund and restructure the land bank to their liking now, but it was okay when slumlords were taking advantage of it, but not okay when hardworking, ordinary people wanted to invest in the program. Right now, the state government has a $100 million grant for nonprofits like Habitat that could benefit from the land bank. I don't think that we should have a situation where we're blaming the federal and state government or the boogeyman for your shortcomings, because disastrous policies begin here. I really want people to educate themselves about lost and host to see what will happen to renters in small businesses, because I don't think the ACCG focused on that enough. There are studies out there that show the negative impacts of that. If we're looking at Rockdale, that has 95,000 residents, and DeKalb that has 779,000, with Spalding having 66,000, I don't think we want to be the guinea pig if only 2 counties are doing this out of 159. I would also appreciate it if some of the commissioners would stop playing the blame game and just admit that they don't understand math or taxes. I would also appreciate it if we didn't have commissioners giving campaign speeches during meetings on the taxpayers' dime as well. But I want to say thank you to Commissioner Flowers Taylor and also Sheriff Dix, because the situation with the jail, they have been talking about since 2018. This isn't something new, but I'm glad that something is finally being done about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Ms. Sharon King. Okay.
Thank you. Item number 8, minutes. 1, consider approval of the minutes of the October 3, 2022 Spalding County Board of Commissioners special called meeting and regular meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. 5-0. Motion passes. Thank you. Consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda can be approved with no discussion. The board can indicate which items need discussion after all of the items are read. The items that need further discussion will then be heard, and once the discussion is complete, the items the board will have no problem approving will be voted on as a whole. All right, Dr. Ledbetter.
All right, so we have 2 items with a few sub-items on each of the consent agendas this evening. First up is consider approval of alcohol business license renewals for retail sale of beer, wine, and liquor for 2023 for the following. Satetra Kong Enterprises Incorporated, DBA The Liquor Gate, located at 1740 Zebulon Road, Griffin, Georgia, 30224. There are no violations for this location. Second is Kareem Dadia Modern Group LLC, DBA Hub, 7770 Noonan Road, Suite A and B, Brooks, Georgia, 30205. There are no violations for this location. Altukumar K. Patel, Carver's Liquor Square Incorporated, Carver Bottle Shop, 1557 Williamson Road, Suite D, Griffin, Georgia, 30224. There are no violations for this location. Second up is consider approval of the following business alcohol license renewal for the retail sale of beer. First up for this evening is Wasim A. Konsam in Ash Incorporated, DBA S&M Grocery, 3244 Fayetteville Road, Griffin, Georgia, 30223. There are no violations for this location.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. Old business, none. Number 11, new business. Consider a request from the Griffin Spalding Airport Authority to enter into a contract with the Georgia Department of Transportation for funding and design of the airfield rehabilitation project. Dr. Ledbetter.
I will yield to Ms. Wyndham.
Commissioners, this is for paving and rehabilitation of the existing airport 6 Alpha 2. These necessary maintenance items have been pushed off for several years based on the fact that we anticipated that we would have a new airport by this time. We don't. They can no longer be pushed out any further, and these repairs are necessary. GDOT's portion, you'll see on your screen, is $3,974.94. The city and the county both have an equal share of this at $1,987.47.
Budgeted?
It is not budgeted. It is 1,000, please state the amount again. I just
$987.47.
$2,000.
$2,000, yeah.
All right.
Where do we want that money to come from?
It's the only place I've got.
Motion to approve the contract to be paid up.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. 5-0. Motion carries. Thank you. Consider adoption of the 2042 Comprehensive Plan, the Future Land Use Map, and the Community Work Program. Dr. Ledbetter?
I will turn it over to Ms. Caroline Evans.
Thank you, Dr. Ledbetter and commissioners. Nice to be here with you all this evening. I wanted to, actually, I need to fast forward this one to the next presentation. I wanted to ask if you might consider this and number 3 at the same time, because I'll be presenting on both the comprehensive plan and the CIE. Here's the presentation. Again, my name is Caroline Evans. I'm here representing the consultant team that has been working on the comprehensive plan, and Paige Hatley is here with me to answer any questions about the CIE. Okay. I did it the wrong way. Okay. As you know, we've been working closely with county staff and you all to accomplish the update of both of these plans, and you likely already know all of the information that's on this slide. However, it bears repeating that the comprehensive plan sets the vision for growth and development in your county, while the capital improvement element updates the county's impact fee program. Both of these contain the specific elements listed here as required by the state of Georgia. We've been working on updating these documents since February. In that time, we've engaged with your citizenry through interviews, 3 steering committee meetings, 3 rounds of public engagement, a community survey, and kickoff and transmittal hearings with you all. This adoption briefing is the culmination of our work. To finalize the plans, we have a few more steps to take, which I'll share with you now. I'm going to first talk about the comprehensive plan update, and then bring Paige up to talk about the CIE amendment. They have separate but related timelines. So Georgia DCA certified that the comprehensive plan update meets all of their requirements. While doing so, they did make recommendations about 3 items to consider prior to adoption, which are listed here in an abbreviated format. I want to be clear that these were not required changes, but just items that DCA noted as being potentially helpful to the plan. In response to the DCA comments, the community work program was reviewed closely with the report of accomplishments. In some cases, items were rephrased to indicate that the substantive action item was included, and we wanted to make that very clear to their comments. There were a couple of instances also where the action items and work program items were noted as dropped from both the community work program and the CIE sections. So next I'll talk about the comments that we received from DCA on the CIE. You can see these summarized and the responses here as well. I'll note again, these were also just advisory comments, not required changes. And I'll ask Paige to come up and talk about next steps on the CIE.
Can you go back to that?
Yes, ma'am.
Slide before that. I'm just trying to read what that says.
Sure. Sorry if I was going too fast.
Okay.
Feeling
You
good?
can go ahead.
All right. What are the next steps? On the comprehensive plan, we're here tonight asking for the Board of Commissioners to consider adoption of the plan by a resolution. You can see the next steps after that, which involve communication with the Three Rivers Regional Commission, DCA, and the public. And then Paige is going to come up and talk about the CIE.
Thank you. Good evening. As Caroline indicated early on, the next steps for the CIE, which is technically a component of the comprehensive plan, they're very close. So we're looking at a request to adopt, and then the final version of the CIE then goes back to the Regional Commission to route to DCA. I want to just remind folks, because as we've been going on with the update to the impact fee program, you may recall a detailed methodology report that was presented early on that included maximum impact fees that could be charged. We haven't resolved that discussion to date, and so I want to clarify that the CIE is really just an updated project listing. So upon adoption of the CIE, you can begin spending impact fees that are in the bank or that you continue to collect on that updated list of projects. It's the impact fee ordinance that is the home to your fee schedule. So if you choose to change what's currently collected to help fund this new list of projects, then that requires a modified fee schedule, which is incorporated into an amended ordinance. So that's something that's still on our to-do list after tonight. I also want to bring up what was mentioned in a previous meeting, that the categories that are addressed in the CIE match what's currently in your impact fee program. And so that's library, parks, fire, law enforcement, emergency management, and emergency communications. And it was raised that roads are not part of that. Roads, or road improvement projects, the state identifies as an eligible impact fee category, but that wasn't the focus of this particular study. But looking ahead, if you so choose, there can be an amendment to the CIE, again, kind of going back into the methodology, creating some more calculations to determine what the projects and fees would be, and that would require an amendment to the CIE that's ahead of you tonight, if you so choose. If you do, the timing could be good if you're done with your transportation plan. I don't know that you are, but having an updated transportation plan would feed into, it would be a key resource utilized in addressing roads as a prospective additional impact fee. So I just wanted to mention that because it has come up in past meetings as well. So again, the CIE allows you to spend monies on an updated project list, and if you want to charge something differently, we can talk about that and potentially amending your fee schedule at a later date in a work session. Sorry to go on there, but I know that's a little bit different animal with respect to impact
Paige,
fees.
I
Yes,
guess
ma'am.
What I'm kind of confused about is that, did we not say that we wanted roads to be in our impact fee?
No, ma'am. At the outset, as part of the RFP, the request was solely to update the program in its current form. And it does not include road improvements as a standalone public facility category, so it was not addressed.
So I know the CWP and the CIE should sort of match, and I was rereading the note where the annotations were that there were projects that were on one and not on the other. What happened? You don't do roads, it's your group that does roads. Are roads not in our comprehensive plan?
No, it is, that is addressed technically by your transportation plan. That satisfies the requirement of your comprehensive plan. Transportation, that component is addressed by way of a separate comprehensive transportation plan. So that's in essence just acknowledged by reference or incorporated by reference. That's not examined in detail in a comprehensive plan.
So I guess why I'm confused is that if we needed the comprehensive transportation plan to be completed to go along with all of this, how could we not have that in our new CIE for impact fees?
Well, when we started on this, we weren't aware, I'm gonna speak for myself, I was not aware of the time frame for your transportation plan. I just mentioned that now, knowing that when we did start on the comprehensive plan update and the update to your impact fee study, that there happened to be transportation plan underway. And if its conclusion, if you want to add roads to your study, having an updated transportation plan is by and large, is a necessary resource to use. If you don't have it, some communities don't have it, that's fine, but now knowing that you have one either in the works or perhaps it's been finished, the information there as far as road recommendations is a nicely, it will dovetail nicely into further detailed study from an impact fee perspective on how some of those projects can be funded with impact fees.
So I have one more question to ask you, Paige. So if we approve this today, and we say in January we want to amend this, the CIE or the CWP for roads, what are we talking about? A 6 month, a year, for that to make its way through us, DCA and Three Rivers?
Because if it's just that one category, I would imagine 6 months, give or take, some things can happen, but definitely not a year to just add that category. It does require going back into the methodology report, as I mentioned, and so there's just a little bit more legwork that isn't necessarily seen to get to that point of actually amending the CIE, but certainly 6 months would be sufficient.
Public hearings and?
No, that's a great point. You would have to have public hearings as we had for this part of the process because it would be a more substantial amendment. It wouldn't just be wordsmithing or adding a comma or something.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I know that's
good.
I covered everything.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I just want to make sure if there's any other questions for them. All right. Paige, Caroline, anything any more from you all?
I'm finished, thank you.
All right. Do I have
Take them one at a time.
on item number 2, do I have a motion to approve the comprehensive plan, the future land use map, and the community work program?
Mr. Chairman, so the future, just making sure everybody understands, the future land use map is the map where we designated work corridors and which areas of the county that we see development happening in terms of the future. Okay. Right, where, they're not necessarily sewer, but that's another whole thing, yeah. Okay, just want to make sure everybody understood that.
Yes, thank you. All right, do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
I just want to say that this process was not like, it wasn't easy for me. I guess in a way I feel like I'm sort of disappointed just in the way that it happened. But we have to do this.
Okay.
And then we have to go back and fix it. Okay,
Ask
that's
about
fine.
two.
Commissioner Johnson?
I know we talked about that fee schedule, increasing that. I know that we've had some conversation about that. We probably need to discuss that a little bit more in detail if we decide
Next
to
item.
increase it.
Next item is CIE.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Head the game. Okay.
Any more discussion on the comprehensive plan? All right, all those in favor signify by raising your hand. 5-0, motion carries. Item number 3, consider a resolution for approval and adoption of the CIE for 2022. Do I have a motion to approve?
No, but I will ask a question. Can the county manager give us the short standing in the supermarket explanation about what this change in the impact fees are gonna be?
Yeah, this is not, just back to Paige's point, this is not setting the fees at this point. This is only agreeing the projects that were listed in the report.
Okay.
The intent here, and I just want to reiterate what Ms. Hatley indicated, the intent here is to come back to the Board of Commissioners in a workshop
For an ordinance?
to put together the fees for feeding into the ordinance. That is correct.
Okay, so we don't need to talk about that tonight.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, once again, do I have a motion to approve?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to consider the resolution for approval and adoption of the CIE for 2022.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. 5-0. We're going back so everybody understands and talk the numbers. And we'll have that come up later, and we're gonna talk from small to medium to large.
Mr. Chairman, in the next week, we will put out a doodle poll for the commissioners for a workshop to finalize those numbers for impact fees.
This is a big number. This is a big issue, not number. This is a big issue for us on where we're going and the developers coming into our county. Okay, thank you. Item number 4, consider approval of updated Carver Road sidewalk concept plan and cost estimates. TJ, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. In reference to the Carver Road Sidewalk Concept Plan, I have removed the park items per your request, and that should result in an estimated savings of $34,704.
Okay. Do I have a motion to, remember we went through this before and we changed what was going to be done in Carver Road. All right, do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
All right, do I have a second? All right, I have a motion and a second. Ms. Gwynn, you have comments?
I do have a comment. So where are we in terms of knowing whether or not the city is either accepting our what is this, engineering drawing, or what are we calling that?
The concept.
So this is just a concept. The actual engineering has to happen somewhere else, right?
That's correct. And in reference to the city, I don't believe that's the Board of Commissioners' purview
Right.
to
So-
make
so
those
I'm
requests from them.
asking you, this is what we've got. What's the next steps? Do we send this to the city and say, we'd like to pave the road, the sidewalk, and where are y'all?
Yes, ma'am, that's exactly the next step. I've had conversations with Mr. Brian Upson with Paragon to support and help that conversation as well.
Okay. So my comment, Mr. Chairman, is that I think the drawing, the part of this sidewalk project that actually goes into the park, I think that it should stay in the map. I just think it needs to be funded with sources other than T-Splosh. So once we get off the street, maybe we can look at some transportation funds in Public Works or something for $30,000 to make that happen, because it's a future site of another amenity. So that's all I had to say.
Any comment there, TJ, on what she just said?
No, sir.
Okay.
Always in agreement with you.
Okay. Any more discussion?
Yeah, you can ask for a vote.
All right, all those in favor signify by raising your hand. 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, TJ.
Thanks, TJ.
This is the first of our sidewalks that we're doing with T-Splosh. It's taken us a while to get through it, but we've got it finally going. All right. Item number 5, consider request to enter into lease purchase agreement for fire trucks as presented by the Spalding County Fire Chief, Mike Burton.
Good evening.
Good evening, Chief.
As we've been approaching and replacing our fleet, GMA's lease pool that we used to pay for our trucks in the past has got an end date that looks like it's going to be past the delivery date of some of our trucks. So I have found another company that is comparable and done some research, presented Dr. Ledbetter to Ms. Garrison as well for comparison. So as part to do this, we have to enter in an MOU that y'all as a board have to agree upon. So that's all I'm going to present tonight. However,
It's in there. There wouldn't have to be a,
Oh, Mike, you're touching the,
Don't touch the.
you keep pushing the agenda forward. So.
Yes.
Yeah, your book.
oh, I
there
see,
it
my
is.
book's on, I apologize. Been a long night for everybody.
there wouldn't happen to be a, enterprise rent-a-car, version of this.
Unfortunately, there is not.
I asked, but they don't go that big.
They don't go to fire trucks.
They don't go that big.
Okay.
So,
All right, do I have a motion?
Okay, so this arrangement, congratulations, Chief Byrd.
thank you, ma'am,
This
I appreciate that.
arrangement is going to require us to put how much money? I mean, we're not paying for this right now.
No,
are we?
ma'am. It doesn't require us to put any money down or forward. What this is just agreeing on that we will use them as or can use them as the company. I hate to use the term lease, but that's what they use, lease purchase program. It's up to us to decide if we're going to put any money down towards future purchases.
So we'll lease purchase, we're technically, we're purchasing this.
It's more of a
We
finance.
have money to buy these things,
That is
right?
correct.
It's
Yes,
more of
ma'am.
a finance program than it is a lease, and I wish I could answer why they call it a lease. I don't understand that.
GMA's lease pool was the exact same way. It was a dollar buyout lease at the end of the term. So it is a purchase product. It's just the way that they manage their funds.
Okay, so I guess I'm saying that because we said we have the money to pay for it, so it's not like we have to say, let's pay, at the end of the year, we pay the lease purchase thing, so. And when will we get a solid price?
We have a solid price now
That-
on our fire trucks.
Right, but that won't change by the time we get delivery.
No, ma'am. We're locked in on price.
Okay.
And then when we do the order, we'll actually lock in on the interest rate as well.
Good.
Key
all
part
right.
with this MOU as well.
Fantastic.
All right, do I have a motion to approve?
Yes, sir, I'd like to make a motion to approve, the resolution. Tell me what it is, I'm on a different page.
Lease purchase agreement,
Resolution
Lease purchase
approving the
agreement
lease
with-
purchase.
fire trucks as presented by Chief
Somebody
Burton.
else made the motion, I can't see it, I'm sorry.
Motion to approve the request to enter into a lease purchase agreement for fire trucks is presented by Spalding County Fire Chief Mike Byrd.
Second.
All right, I have
That I
a,
can
thank,
do.
thank you.
I
I have
have
a,
paper.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you,
Chief Burton,
guys.
appreciate hard work to find this workaround for us. That's a good project. We appreciate that.
You're welcome, and thank you. Everybody have a good night.
All right, thank you.
Super Chief Byrd. What's above chief? State chief. Top chief.
Lieutenant Colonel Chief.
Head chief. That's right.
That's, all right. Consider adoption of item number 6, consider adoption of the service delivery strategy. Dr. Ledbetter.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to table this and have us do a workshop in order for us to finally vote on this. And the reason I say that is because just in looking through the stuff, there were lots of things that Michelle and Jessica were, I'm doing this because I'm not saying they did, working on over the past 3 or 4 years. And some things we thought we had been told were in agreement. And I think that it's very important that this is a time for us to make sure we look at the details before we sign. So, I mean, there are leases, there are agreements for services. I just don't want us to just say, okay, let's sign SDS. And come back later on and we didn't know that that's what that was when we signed it.
Okay. Dr. Ledbetter, where are you as far as the SDS goes from your perspective?
let's get it technical. You got a motion on the table.
Well, we don't have a second, so we can keep.
Yeah.
Okay. I can
Somebody
tell,
wants a second.
I can tell you
Discussion.
that for the last
No, it's
year,
not. Oh,
we
that's right.
have worked
Discussion.
diligently for the citizens of Spalding County on putting together our service delivery strategy. In fact,
600 pages. 600 plus
here's the
pages.
document. There are still some areas that we're struggling through. And it would be good, to have some consensus among the board on how we're going to address these moving forward.
All right, when's this due date?
The due date for service delivery is October the 31st. We have got to have this in hand or we lose our certified local government status. And what that means is no grants, no permits. We lose a lot by not getting this in hand.
As does the city of
As
Griffin.
does the
As
city.
the city. But it's one, excuse me, just because I've been here like forever, I cannot tell you how important it is to read the thing and know what it is that we're agreeing to. At this point, I don't want us to make any assumptions that just because it's been running that way, that that's what the paperwork says. So that's why I say I would prefer before we have to the end of this month, we need to be able to say, yeah, we looked at this, or we knew that there were 7 contracts for rental, or that the 800 megahertz was blah, 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 blah. Because inevitably, something will come back and then they'll say, well, you voted for it.
All right.
This
now let's-
happened to me.
let's-
Just saying.
Let's talk about the timing of this. We have to the end of the month. We have to also turn this over to the city, and they have to approve also. Correct?
They have currently everything that we have.
That is correct.
So, but
And
they have not
re-
approved.
They have not approved it, but they have reviewed it as well with a fairly fine-tooth comb.
I thought
And
they had
they're,
signed off on it. They had signed off
They have
on it.
not signed
They
off
have
on
not
it.
signed off on it. There are still 3 areas that we are struggling through. One is the animal control and animal shelter. One is the 800 megahertz. And the third was there is a lease for
Fairmont Park.
Okay, so if we're talking about timeline here, okay, so that would be us having a work session, saying what we want. That's us taking it back to them. They have to agree. Then we have to, so we're talking about 2 weeks. So I'm saying maybe we
short
can do it,
time.
maybe we can't, but I mean, we're gonna have to get moving on it and, you know.
So, I mean, this is where the hard work comes. You know, we know where we are in terms of the time. We just need to figure out how to get in one spot for 1 or 2 hours and break this thing apart and we all look at it. And there are really only about 3 issues that
If we stop,
are
stick with the 3.
serious.
Stick with the 3.
And we've been working on it pretty much daily for the last 2 weeks, and have been in conversation with Ms. O'Connor as well as Ms. Carden. And we're very close. There are just those 3 areas that are still a little bit up in the air.
Here's my question. So what do you want us to approve tonight? What's here? If you're still arguing over 3 of them, like, do we have to come back later and vote for the resolutions of those?
Unfortunately, if we table this and go to workshop for those 3, yes, we will have to come back. We can vote to adopt the entire document in its entirety, and we have
As
worked.
it is.
Yeah, we have worked very, very hard to put this entire document into one consolidated file.
But what I'm saying is, then we're not changing it anymore. If we make changes, we have to vote again, right?
And they have to agree to that.
And they have
That
to
is
vote.
correct.
So,
If we adopt
It
it
should-
tonight, that's it, basically.
If we adopt it tonight, that's it. Now, you could adopt all but those 3, and we could go to discussion around those 3.
But you have to agree, we have to send that to them and them agree
That's correct.
to accept that we only did part of it.
And see, the issue with like the 800 megahertz, we had an answer. 2 months ago, we had an answer that was said this is what we were gonna do. And then they changed the answer.
And,
now,
and
if-
so
if this-
I don't understand that, because even if, you know, this is public knowledge, even if there is no need for them to pay for the emergency radios, what about the non-emergent radios? You didn't pay us for anything. And I, you know, I'm just like, no, that's not right. You need to pay for the services that were provided. You agreed to do that. So that's where I am about that. The thing with the animal shelter, same thing. I'm not real sure why they feel that there is a higher level of service, but clearly with the problems that we've had over the last 2 years with our animal shelters, the individuals that bring animals to our shelter need to meet some minimum requirements, and right now the city doesn't have people who can do that. So that's the other thing. This is for me, the animal control thing is a health and safety issue, which, you know, I don't know if we can't banner that out, if we can do it in SDS, and then when lost, we can figure lost or not figure lost. But that, and then the contract at Fairmont, where if in fact we own half of the property, in the arrangement, we're required to provide recreation services, do all the maintenance and operation, keep everything going, staff it, and if at any point we don't do that, we have reneged on our agreement, and it says that the city can take the property. And so I'm like, why are we leasing from the city if we own the property? So why is there even a contract for that? That gives us all of these requirements, but the other partner has none.
Okay, just so you know, my answer is, we want all the money for the 800 megahertz. 2, we're not gonna sign the contract, the thing for Fairmont. We're not doing it that way. And on the animal shelter, these are the requirements, if you're gonna use our animal shelter, that you're gonna have to fit. I say we say that's our position.
I mean, it's been our position about that.
So the bottom line is, so does it make sense for us to approve the other 7 items and not do this one, or just wait and then work the 3 items out and approve the whole thing? Stephanie, what's the best thing to do?
I mean, it makes the most sense to work everything out and approve the whole thing.
Because that means I just don't want to approve part of it, send that to them, and then we got 3 things sitting out here that still gotta be settled, which are the biggest things, and it's a major part of our SDS. You can't not recognize that that's missing.
Why don't we, is it currently in that document, is there a resolution for those 3 things in that document right now?
Not signed. There are
I don't care
IGAs.
what
Yes.
what they
It's in
signed.
there.
Have we said this is what we want to happen in that document that we're voting on? Though that we could.
Originally, we did.
If you approve the SDS, then you are approving the government, the intergovernmental agreements and the contracts that are within it. We have not, in many cases, separately gone back and addressed each of these agreements, and the city has not approved them either. Well, for example, the animal shelter, there is one in there, but it is not.
But it doesn't address those concerns.
It addresses the majority of those concerns.
It does
yes.
address the majority of those concerns.
It addresses the concerns of the 800 megahertz radios.
It does not address.
But it does not address the IGA with Fairmont.
It does not address that a private entity wants to bring animals to our animal shelters, and we are to bear the cost of that, whether that is, I mean, I know the new agreement says that if the animal is sick, we're gonna charge the city for that. To me, that's just another piece of paper to send to them for them to argue with us and say, no, that's your responsibility to do that. When an animal comes into the shelter injured or sick, our job is to take it to get taken care of. But if you already know when you pick that animal up that it's sick or injured, you're not gonna take that animal to the vet because y'all gonna get a bill. We don't say that specifically in that contract.
That's
and
true.
it also says that they don't pay us anything for allowing them to bring their animals to the shelter. Either they all come to the shelter, period, under the same requirements, the person that picks them up has a infectious disease certification, they have an animal control officer certification, all of those things that we require, then even if we allow you to do that, you still need to pay because you're not letting us come do our job.
And if
Because that's what we do, county animal control enforcement.
And if they don't have anyone that is certified as an animal control officer, they want to keep animal control under the purview of the city.
But they don't have any.
We've gone back and forth on this particular issue. First it was just the shelter, then it was the animal control and animal shelter, and now it's back to just the shelter. So are we not going to allow them to bring animals to our shelter if they don't have a certified animal control officer?
Well, I mean, from where I'm standing, that's a problem, because if it ends up costing us more money, or having to shut the entire shelter down because a sick animal brought parvo into the whole building.
Which has happened
It's a
recently.
humane issue. Like, would we want the trash collection guys to bring dogs to us? Because they're equally certified as their current, you know what I'm saying? And of course not. Of course we wouldn't want, because that's a horrible situation. So why not require them to do it correctly, which is what a certification is.
That's correct.
I'm not sure why they would be upset at us saying, hey, if you're gonna have animal control, then you have to train your people to do animal control. That's not a crazy ask. That's not us saying you gotta have a post-certified, he's gotta be a 12-year. Be certified in doing this. It's not rocket science, but you still have to jump through the hoops to do it. I don't think that's a big deal.
So it sounds to me like the conversation that's going on is that there is a need for us to sit down and go through these three to make sure that we're in agreement for how we're gonna present moving forward and to use the entire
I didn't
document.
think there was. I think there is.
All right.
I think there is.
Okay, now,
Does anybody have time this week?
pull your calendars, because we're on a very tight time
Yeah,
schedule,
we need
and
to
we've
move
got to,
fast ourselves.
not only do we have to have a workshop, then we've got to be able to have a meeting to approve it. And then we've got to turn around and send it to the city for them to have time to, if they don't like some of the words we've got. Okay?
All the people in charge of my calendar left earlier.
Oh, wow.
So maybe I have time this week.
I mean, maybe
Depends on how
we can
quickly.
split it up kind of among us and everybody go through a section to see if there's
I
any.
won't tomorrow.
Anytime after Wednesday, I'm good.
What'd you say?
Anytime after the 19th of this week.
Good anytime.
All right, how about
I
Thursday?
should be able to
Thursday
Friday.
afternoon. Thursday afternoon at 4 o'clock.
No, I can't do it. I have somewhere to be from 4 to 6.
I
I'm
could
free
do
earlier that day on
2:30.
Thursday.
1 o'clock on Thursday.
2:30 on. I have a 1:30
No.
municipal court.
1 o'clock on Thursday is a no.
Yeah, the
Okay.
Rotarians won't let you do that. You can't.
Friday. All right?
What
9
about
o'clock
2:30
on
on
Friday.
October? 2:30 on October?
Can we do a morning on Thursday?
Morning would work
No,
better for
I
me on
can't do
Thursday.
Monday. I can't do Thursday morning.
The Development Authority meets on Thursday morning.
How about Friday, 9 o'clock?
I'm pretty open on Friday. I can be available.
Friday, 9 o'clock
I'll
going
be-
once?
Yes, but I've got a
I'm gonna be
10,
out of
so-
town, but I'll try to be on the Zoom.
Okay.
But you're
This
We'll
is
make-
just
we'll make
workshop.
sure we get a
in charge
Zoom.
here,
I
so-
know, but I'm going to training
We'll
on
put a
Friday
Zoom.
that I've been planning for almost 6
This
Can,
months.
can you do 2:30 on Thursday?
Yeah,
2:30
but
Thursday?
they can't come on Thursday.
Who?
I can be here Thursday.
2:30?
If that's fine.
2:30?
Two-
Rotary's
two-
out by then.
I
Two
know,
Thursday,
I have
Thursday?
a 2 o'clock. I could do 3 o'clock.
I could do 3.
3 o'clock Thursday?
3,
No?
4, I'm fine.
Okay. Back to Friday, 9 o'clock.
Oh no, we're good so far. We're getting green lights for 3 o'clock.
I'm there, I mean. y'all
I
can say
prefer
tell me
Thursday than
whenever, I'll
Friday
be
if
there.
we can, but
Okay.
yeah,
I
I'm
agree.
available Thursday.
So,
Gwen, can you do 3 o'clock? All
Y'all
right,
are
3 o'clock
killing
Thursday.
me.
Right.
All right, 3 o'clock Thursday. We'll notice this.
It's a workshop.
It's a workshop.
and then while we're covering it, let's cover the rest of it, because
Can
then
we
we've got-
have, okay, so if we're gonna do a workshop, can we have a regular meeting afterwards, cause hopefully we'll be ready to vote?
I think that is,
So while you make
I
a
think
schedule,
that's,
for it,
I think that's a wonderful
very
idea.
good.
Yes.
Yes, we will notice both the workshop and a
Yeah.
regular,
Right.
and an emergency call meeting.
Yes.
all right,
Oh,
man,
wonderful. Great
man.
idea.
Okay, what time do you want to
messing it
schedule the
up.
special call meeting?
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock?
I gotta be in Atlanta at 6:30.
For the vote?
Can you do
Yes, we're
4:30?
only talking like
A
maybe
5-minute
20 minutes.
No, this is just.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just gonna vote.
All right, all
Walk in here, call it. So, all right, so
Thank you, James.
So 5?
3 o'clock,
And 5 o'clock.
That'll give us enough time
4:30?
to have, let's make it 5 o'clock. That way we've got enough
I
time to
think you
really
got
go
too much
through.
talking to
Yeah.
do to make,
okay,
Okay.
cut that short.
3 to 5 work session and vote on at
Okay.
Yes.
okay,
5.
Yeah, let's do
All
it.
right.
all right. Staff, you'll come prepared for, on those 3 to
We-
be able to talk us through.
We will.
And try to come prepared, you know what the answer is in your mind. This shouldn't be starting from scratch. This is what we wanted to say.
We tackle
And-
those 3 things.
And that's in the SDS document
It
that
is.
you sent us,
It
okay?
is.
And if we call upon you, we being Steve or I, or David Penland in my office, to maybe speak to one of your counterparts on the city commission between now and then, I hope you'll indulge us.
Yes, please.
I can do it.
Okay.
Okay, do we want to finish the,
Yes, we
Okay.
have a
The motion to
motion on
table?
the table to table, but you don't have a second.
Let's table. Go ahead.
So,
Did I actually make a motion, I just suggested?
no,
No, you made the
you made a
motion.
motion.
Okay.
Can you amend your motion to have a date to what we're tabling, table to Thursday at 5?
I'll amend my
Thursday at 3.
motion to.
Thursday at 3.
I'll rescind my motion and make another motion, since I didn't
Okay.
have a second. I'd like to make a motion to, table this discussion until Thursday's workshop.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. No, yeah, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. 5-0.
Thank you, guys.
Motion is tabled. Okay.
Next is the
We're
new
gonna
item.
find out where we are.
New item.
Consider request from the Spalding County Sheriff's Office for a resolution to allow American Traffic Solutions Incorporated, DBA, Vera Mobility to pay funds for speeding violations within the school zone directly to the Sheriff's Office Department to be held in a separate account and used for purposes allowed by OCGA 40-14-8M. Ms. Wyndham?
So as I said in my email to you from earlier today, the school zone speeding tickets are now coming in front of Judge Thacker in state court, and we've run into a couple of issues just based on moving them through efficiently, and Judge Thacker has taken the lead on basically planning all of that out for us. Currently, Sheriff Dix and Sheriff and Tony and Dwayne can correct me if I misspeak in any of these things. There is an existing contract with Vera Mobility, and Vera Mobility has been paying the fines that it has received from citizens who've received these citations directly to a separate account that the sheriff is maintaining and using it in accordance with the statute. The issue is that the statute actually says that the funds are paid to the governing body, and you being the governing body, we just want this resolution to direct Vera Mobility to pay those funds as they're paying them currently, rather than paying them to us and us have the expense and the time that it takes to actually run them through the general fund and then pay them right back out to the sheriff.
So according to OCGA, they're supposed to pay them to us. We're interpreting that with this to say you're paying it to how?
We're
You're paying it to
as
us
we
as we
direct.
wish you directed.
As we direct,
Okay,
yes.
that makes
Do
sense.
we do that anywhere else?
I have no idea.
This is an incredibly
I don't
poorly
like-
written law that
It is a very
everyone's
poorly
trying
written
to
law.
like
So-
make this sense out of. Like,
Right,
it's an
so, but I'm just
incredibly
trying to
poorly
find out, and if the sheriff or one of his guys don't mind answering this, what makes this any different than the money you guys get for the commissary? Doesn't that all go through the general fund?
This is a very legal requirement with a very poorly written law that is mandating this direction.
And the funds actually, so the statute actually says The money collected and remitted to the governing body pursuant to paragraph 1 of subsection B of this code section shall only be used by such governing body to fund local law enforcement or public safety initiatives. So actually what we're doing is directing it to be paid directly to the sheriff to fund those local law enforcement or public safety initiatives.
Basically
So,
bypassing
but where
us.
does that money go through, where does Jenna get to figure her stuff out in that?
She
Because
doesn't, because
She
it never
doesn't.
goes to her. That's really the point.
Yeah.
She doesn't want it to go to her either.
Okay, see, I don't understand that. If money is being paid to Spalding County for the sheriff, then how do we account for it as being spent if she has no access to the records part of it?
We keep a record of it, and those records are audited every year, just like our asset forfeiture account and everything else. All the purchases are documented, and we try to keep as little money in that as we can. We try to spend it immediately on things. We just invested $93,000 in buying brand-new flashing lights for all the schools in the county. We're waiting on those to come in. We are going to put the flashing sidewalk lights that you see at the sidewalks. We're going to put those in at all school crossings now inside the county. We're getting quotes on those. There are
So
other things.
this is the money that you're doing that with?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So I guess I don't understand how come, if the money came into the county, why Jenna wouldn't just automatically put it into the sheriff's account?
It's not currently coming to us, it's currently going to the sheriff, but it shouldn't. It should come to us, and then we have to take time and effort to like bounce it over there.
The line item.
When if we pass this, it just continues to go to them, but legally. Right now, we haven't yet officially voted to direct it there. We're just officially
So
voting it
this is
to direct
formality,
it there.
basically.
Yeah.
Right.
It is a formality for administrative purposes.
I'm in
All
favor
of the
of it.
money is audited, just like it is in every other account. We know exactly where the money's going. It's just that instead of having one of the two ladies up front that actually accept the money coming in and then write the check back out to the sheriff's department, it's just going straight to the sheriff's department for them to do the administrative function of
And
the
it'll
job.
show in his
But I'm
budget,
saying,
right?
Sheriff, how are y'all, what are you doing? You writing checks for Spalding County? I'm
No,
not
ma'am.
understanding.
According to the law, that money has to be used, like Ms. Wyndham just said. So it's not like asset forfeiture, it's not like commissary. It's specifically noted in the law where that money goes and how it can be spent. So we follow the letter of the law and how we disperse it, how we use it, yes, ma'am. And we write checks for those different things that we have ordered, like the lights and all those things.
I have one more question. Judge Thacker has, because of the huge administrative cost of running, I think we're at close to 18,000 tickets now, in a court that usually does 8,000 tickets a year total. He's ordered them to add an additional $25 court fee to it.
That's allowed by the statute, so.
Yes, but that money should go to Judge Thacker in the court because of all the extra cost of their part, not to the sheriff's department.
Right.
I want to make sure that we're only directing the
So-
part that's supposed to be going.
Well,
You see what I'm saying?
my understanding is when the money comes to us, it would be up to us to disperse the money to Judge Thacker.
I just
And
don't
then
want,
disperse the payment to Vera Mobility.
as long as that's fine, as long as you're going to do that. I just didn't
Right.
want to like
But-
have Judge Thacker come in and go like, wait a minute,
No.
but as long as this still works, so
Right.
that he gets that port and then they get their.
And in fact, there have been discussions with Judge Thacker that if we don't do it this way by resolution allowing it to be paid directly to the sheriff, that we keep a portion of that $25 for our administrative cost.
But this way we don't incur any administrative costs.
But, Sheriff, I just don't understand, don't you have to get somebody to do that? Because, I mean, that's another extra step. If there's another $25 on each ticket asset that you have to send to another department. And
Yes,
in a
ma'am.
department without it going, and his budget certainly has to be addressed by Jenna. I'm just confused, y'all, and I'm just saying, it seems like we're doing a whole lot of stuff that is creating more layers of not, especially this whole thing with the judge.
Actually, the
Less
intention
layer.
of this is to do the exact opposite.
Yes, it's creating
Is to
less
streamline it
Right.
such that we don't have to take all these extra steps.
So what kind of arrangement does the judge have with the sheriff's department to send them this money?
When that program starts, he will send us an invoice, and we will remit that money back to him, or back to
Okay.
state court.
Every ticket that comes in front of him, just like if you get fined $150 for running a stop sign, you're actually charged closer to 200 because of all the fees and add-ons. And so it's the same thing. One point collects it and then disperses it to wherever it needs to go, and it would be the same with this ISO.
Okay.
And Judge Thacker's been very diligent. I mean, he's had meetings with all of us to include Bear Mobility, to include the solicitor and the clerk. So he has tried to think through pretty much every option.
He has gone to different jurisdictions that use this exact same program and spoken to their state court judges and watched some of the things that are going on in their courts. And this is the safest, most efficient way to do it that has the fewest moving parts.
And I think they all agree that this is a very poorly written law, but it is what we have.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. 5-0, motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Wyndham and Sheriff.
And also, thanks to Tony and Dwayne. They've been very helpful.
Yeah, thank you all. Okay, at this point, we're at the report of the county manager.
In light of the hour, I will make my report very quickly. I am pleased to report that our resurfacing update for our T-Splost, we have completed all of the resurfacing. So year one's roads for resurfacing are complete. We're waiting on striping for, as you can see on the report on the screen, about 60% of the roads are waiting for the striping. Remember that striping that's going in will be thermoplasty, so the visibility of these roads are going to be very, very well lit at night, so I'm very pleased over that. If you've not had a chance to ride through the roads, very pleased. I think C.W. Matthews did a really good job for us this year. Paragon and Public Works and I are all working on bidding out the roads for next season. One of the things that we do have planned is when we bid next season's roads for year two, we will include a number of year three roads for our bid. And that way we can be out in front like we were hoping to be for this year. Also on the screen that you see, yes, it is here. If you did not see the replacement for Big Blue, it was in our back parking lot this evening. What an amazing vehicle, very pleased. And the lettering that you see in front of you, that did pass through the Parks and Leisure Advisory Commission. So we will get that queued up just a little bit more, and then we'll get that in front of you as the board so you can approve the lettering for the vehicle at our November event for November the 7th Board of Commissioner meeting. Waiting on some materials, so very pleased. That's all my update this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Two things quickly. Looking forward to, well, I'm glad we had the justice folks that were actually here, because I think that needs assessment study. Like I said, it's moving us in the right direction. And I can appreciate Commissioner Flowers saying not placing a dollar amount on it, but we do need to know what that next step means in that overall. And once again, the leasing mechanism of that is going to be very important. So I'm interested in hearing more about that. Secondly, great presentation by Clint Mueller regarding the host. We definitely want to stress, and I know we got some of the city folks that are probably listening to us right now, and I hope they hear me clearly. We're still negotiating the lost. We want to negotiate this. The host is something that is an alternative measure. But let's come to let's come to the table and let's negotiate this fairly and equitable and get this thing passed. That's all I got to say.
I'm gonna follow up with you. Negotiate, Steve. I mean, we want the lost.
I mean, but we got something on the back burner if y'all don't come to the table and negotiate. I got a lot of people starting to show interest in the chip and seal on my side, and they got, the word got out. I talked to TJ a little bit the other week, and he's gonna try to implement a program to, as of now, we have approximately 78 miles of roadway, dirt roads, and he's looking at a way to get all that chip and sealed and cut down on it. I'm still unhappy with Yarborough Mill though. Everything else up north looks fine, but Yarborough Mill, it sucks.
I think we all are, yes, so.
Okay, so tell McElroy to call us back and let's work this out, get it done.
They fixed the issues on Ellis though, didn't they?
Yeah, oh yeah, they fixed that.
Okay, anything else, sir?
Nope, I'm good.
Ms. Quinn?
Have nothing.
All right. Vice Chair?
I just want to touch on Lost. Like, I tell my kids all the time, you know, my 4-year-old will be whining or whatever, I'll say, look, there's an easy way to do this, and there's a real easy way to do this. The real easy way is me to pick you up and put you in bed. And so they always choose the easy way. And if we look at this, just going by our current numbers, we have the potential to lower every homeowner in the county's property taxes by 16.318. 16.318.
138.
138.
Yes.
Close.
This is my dyslexia. At mills, and then lower everyone else's by 2. So, you know, business owners would get less taxes, renters would get, landlords would get less taxes, industry would get less taxes, homeowners would get huge benefit. And it's in the city's hands right now. We've made our offers. Here you go. Sign it or don't sign it. Either way, I think the taxpayers and the citizens of Spalding County come out as a huge winner, no matter what the city chooses to do. But it's the city's option. The county's going to be fine with whatever, if they sign it or they don't sign it. It's up to them to sign it or not. We've made our offers, and that's as easy as it gets. We can do this the easy way or the real easy way.
Is that it, sir?
That's it.
Okay. I want to say thank you to Ms. Gwynn for first leading our effort on Lost during mediation and things like that. That's you've taken a big responsibility for us, and I appreciate it. Also on making sure that the bus came out right through the planning and leisure, park and leisure, making sure that all worked. I truly thank you for that. Staff, I want to make sure we get roads back into CIP. Somehow we've got to do that, however that works. This is our long-range plan to finish T-Splosh in 5 years is to do things like this and get the roads back in there so we can take care of them. We've got to get that done. And things like chip and seal are all part of fixing the roads, and we've got to continue to work. And last point is advanced voting has started, early voting. Please, everybody, vote. This is important. I don't care how you vote, just vote. All right, with that said, consider.
Motion to move into executive session.
Second.
For the reasons I stated.
Is that okay?
I have to read the whole thing.
As provided by OCGA 50-14-2-1 for consultation with county attorney or other legal counsel to discuss pending potential litigation, and also as provided in 50-14-3-6 for discussion, deliberation on the appointment, employment, compensation, hiring, disciplinary action, or dismissal, or periodic evaluation or rating of a county officer or employee.
Yep.
All right, I have a motion. I'm looking for a motion. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion on that? All those in favor signify by, all right. We're into executive session. Everybody, if you have to, take a break on the way.
Who did the second?
Yes.
James.
Well,
Check.
we made the second time. So
Okay,
it took
I'm sorry.
Okay, I got it.
I'm still trying to figure out what the hell the
Gwen's got it. You got the red document.
It used to be called Patrick Park.
Yeah. No, Patrick Farm is a different one though.
No, I think that envelope was Patrick Park, but
No, I think Dundee Park was Patrick.
maybe.
I was a little kid when I remember going somewhere that was Patrick,
Yeah,
and then
I
also
remember
playing
Patrick
Ambos.
Park. I thought it was Amber, but, yeah. Because I think they named it Amber because American business people.
Do what's important. All the things I'm doing, this is the important. All right, you can say going on. Okay.
Just tell them wait on me. Just my bag up right quick.
Excuse me, I'm back again because I didn't do it very well. You wait right here. DeAndre's coming to pick, make sure you get to the car.
Thank you, yeah, I'll stay right there.
Okay. Rita, did you find out yet?
We're not gonna do it.
You sure?
I'm pretty certain, 'cause I mean,
Do you want me to resubmit the same one in? I can.
can you wait till, we have our meeting tomorrow? Do you mind if I just ask everybody at the meeting tomorrow? Because I mean, we actually have our ABW meeting tomorrow. I we're supposed to everybody, so. Because it might be, if we could do the same one, that'd be great. Okay.
What?
You can get it now.
I'm gonna get it. Yeah, who's gotta sing that too bad because it's
Huh?
still recording. I'm gonna sing that too bad, it's still recording.
Oh, you are? Oh, put them back there. Okay.
All right, let's go.
Come on, Mr.
babies are in the bed. Yeah, we got to look at that paper.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, we gotta tell him what he's supposed to get.
I mean, wow.
No, I mean, you know.
Sorry, but
You're just so out of it.
you know what I mean? Like,
It's been 2 years and everybody knows the board I got it right.
Tell me when you're ready. All right, do I,
Come out of
Session.
all right, do I have a motion to come out of executive session?
Yes, you do.
Second. All right.
Second.
All those in favor signify by raising your hand. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
You too.
Second. All right, all those in favor signify by raising your hand. We're adjourned.
All
Thank
right,
you.
guys.
so we'll see each other
You guys did
this
some
week.
awesome business.
SDS is Thursday.
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 Can't forget that, Thursday.
Yes.
All right, we'll
Oh,
At
you
3
right.
o'clock.
Oh, sure we will.
Quinn, you gotta get your golf cart, man.
Thank you.
I'm gonna get one.
It's so much fun. And look, let me tell you, I'm saving.
Hey, you're souped up too.
Yeah.
Well, I bought mine used.
Souped up, look nice.
Thursday.
We've had to replace a